But I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know whether rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1.
Self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest. Into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? We're here with James tonight. We're talking about UFOs. That's right. This is, of course, a show where we get together and talk about all of those things we're not allowed to talk about. You know what they are. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. As we do this, of course, this is always live to include you if you want to be part of the discussion tonight. You can reach the show and myself and James here at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. You can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. That's troubledminds.org. And yeah, that will totally help. Sorry about that, James. I even cut you into the sound loop so you could hear what was going on. But it doesn't help if I mute myself. All right, so that's what we're doing tonight. Thanks, James, for pointing that out. Otherwise, you'd have been in the nice quiet. The digital darkness would actually be digital quiet darkness. Okay, so look, this is the deal, right? As you know, this show's about a conversation. Like I said, we don't get down into the nitty-gritty details of things and try and tell you what the truth is. I'm not concerned with that, to be perfectly honest. I'm more interested in an actual truth-ish, right? Meaning that, of course, if you ask the right question, you can actually get 1,000 or 10,000 or a million different answers from a million different people, and that's what's more interesting to me. Not about what I think, more about what we think, sort of as a collective, as a conversation, and that's what this show's always been about. Just kind of getting together and considering all of the crazy things out there, and we do what's called drinking the maybe juice, right? And so all that means is it's the mark of an educated mind to consider a thought without accepting it. That's a paraphrase from Aristotle, and it's I think it makes so much sense today, in that we should be able to sort of detach our belief system for a moment, just to have a discussion and consider what the hell is actually going on out there. So that's what's up with this. We're doing the thing. We're streaming, of course, on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Like I said, 702-957-1037. That's 702 957-1037, and click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Also, we are streaming on Fringe, like I said. So please, Fringe is in need of a little bit of help. Like I said, it is free to listen for everybody out there, but somebody does have to pay the bills. So asking for a little bit of help if you can, spare a few bucks. Fringe.fm/donations. I'd appreciate that very much. Let's go to hey, I know the moment you've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. James of Salcedo Paranormal. What's up, my man? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you?
I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. What's going on, man? What's going on? The hot news today, right? We got the Congressional UFO hearings. Did you get a chance to listen to it? Some of this stuff, at least?
Yeah, I missed the first 10, 15 minutes because I was working on stuff, of course. But I caught most of it, the rest of it after that. And yeah, there were some interesting things in there. I mean, I know if you look online, there's various takes on what actually came of it. But there were still a couple moments that were I think were interesting. Again, I don't like that word, but there it is.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Compelling. Yeah. All the rest of that stuff. Yeah, it started slow. So what I did is I went through and I trimmed up. I spent way too much time trimming up damn near the whole thing, right? Not the entire. It was an hour and a half, and there was some dead air in there for a little bit as they fumbled through trying to find the UFO video and freeze it on the UFOs that flew by, which was super funny. They got somebody running the laptop that's trying to scroll back and get a freeze frame on this UFO that whisks by. That's basically just this little glowing metallic sphere, right? That's flying by. It's super hilarious. It's either the plane is moving too fast and this thing's moving too fast crossing. It just it's only on the screen for a frame or three, and so they're trying to in this 12-second video for a full probably 7 or 8 minutes, just try and get the UFO in the video freeze framed so you can actually see what the hell they're talking about.
It was funny because you're Congress. How do you not have infrastructure set up in there to just why do you need a laptop? That should be just streaming into that room.
Yeah. Or, I mean, and the funny thing, too, is I don't know if you noticed this, they were using VLC player, right? Which is just it's a good little video player, but it's not really built for frame by frame type stuff like that. It's just come on, guys. You're sitting on the biggest pile of money on the globe, right there in the halls of Congress, and we're talking about a crappy laptop and you can't freeze frame on the UFO. Anyway, we digress a little bit here, but it was a comical moment, kind of a microcosm of how Congress actually works, wouldn't you say, James?
Yeah, definitely.
The old, we got this many people in the room. We've got a laptop with the video we need. It just nobody can freeze frame it at the exact frame that we need to actually discuss the UFO. So anyway, there were some other interesting things. We're going to get into it. Like I said, I've trimmed up a whole bunch of this. I'll play some of the boring stuff in the beginning just to give you a feeling of how this went today. It happened today at 7 a.m. Pacific time, and it was boring for the first half of it. I was like, God, this is horrific. But stay tuned to Troubled Minds here, because not only was this thing boring for the first half, the second half it kind of got spicy. There's actually some stuff in there that the UFO community might be into, and I was a little shocked that this information came up. But we'll get into that as we go, and so that's what we're doing tonight. How you feeling, James? You feeling in the UFO mood?
Yeah, this is one area of the strange and unexplained that I don't know a ton about. I'm a lot more familiar with the, I guess you could say, even though, again, categories, names, I'm a lot more familiar with the ghost side of things, the spiritual side of things. But I think that there are intersections with all these different categories and labels. So I'm definitely I've been monitoring, Twitter and just other social media now for a while, just here and there, checking on the UFO related stuff. And I don't read all of it by any means, but just kind of keep checking on it. So, yeah. So it was neat to actually be listening to it live today, actually, regardless of whatever comes out of it.
Yeah, it was like I said, the second half got fun. All right, so for those of you that don't know, this is today they actually had a UFO hearing, an open hearing to the public. It was the entire thing was televised and live streamed on YouTube. And let's get to the articles here real quick and kind of just fill in exactly what the hell went down today. This is from and I got all kinds of clips to play so you can hear exactly what these guys said. This is from the BBC. UFOs, few answers at rare U.S. Congressional hearing. The two top military officials tasked with probing the sightings said that most can ultimately be identified, but they said a number of events have defied all attempts at explanation. The sightings recorded by the military include 11 near misses with U.S. aircraft. I've got that clip. You guys can hear it yourself. We'll play a little bit later. The article continues here. Some unexplained aerial phenomena. That would be the UAPs. Unexplained. Is it unidentified aerial phenomena? Anyway, I think
it's unidentified.
I think they messed it up here. Anyway, this is straight from the BBC. What do you expect? As the military terms UFOs, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs now. It's the rebrand from UFOs, right? But anyway, this seems to have been moving without any discernible means of propulsion. And, okay, what happened at the hearing? National security threats. How did we get here? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, anyway, that's their version of it. We're not going to do their version of it. We're going to do our version of it. So a few questions for you tonight. If you guys saw the actual congressional UFO hearing, what was your take? Were you interested? Do you really care? Do you think anything good is going to come out of this, even if today was a little bit slow? And like I said, it did get spicy in the end. What was your take? What is your, like I said, nothing burger? Do you think there was enough spicy stuff to maybe jog some interest in the public sphere, in this space, to maybe ask for more of these type of live public hearings? That's the question. How do you feel about this? Do you actually give a damn? Do you think they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes or obfuscate or all the rest of that stuff? I think that's what this is all about, right? This is all about sort of just considering that, as always, right? Considering there may be extraterrestrials out there, considering there may not be, considering, well, getting information from Congress is like, well, I don't know, trying to find a freeze frame of a UFO on a laptop with a VLC player, a free VLC player, by the way, which is sitting on the biggest pile of money. Anyway, okay, so what are your thoughts on this entire thing? We're going to get into some clips here and hear exactly what they said, but that's what I want to know. I want to know what you thought about this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. I got some clips to play real quick. But James, what was your overall takeaway on this? We'll get into the nitty-gritty details, but you watched most of it, missed the first 10 minutes or so. Did you leave feeling like something changed or something happened, or maybe did you learn something? What was your thought there?
Yeah, I rarely. This is like the first time I think in years that I've ever actually listened to anything from any kind of from Congress in any way. I normally do not, because they're good at talking. They're good at choosing their words just the way they want, so that they only say what they want and nothing else. But I did think that it's good that it happened, I think. I think also we'll have to wait and see what, if anything else comes of this as far as more hearings or any of that. It did seem like you said, near the end there were more questions. Didn't seem like there were a lot more answers to a lot of those questions, but at least they were being asked, even if it was only one or two. I guess that's progress in a way. I don't know. I'm very skeptical of, as I've said before, of any kind of official reports on any of this stuff, because I feel like it comes down to individual experiences in a lot of cases, and I think we should be paying a lot more attention to that than just what any agency or organization says. But also we shouldn't totally dismiss it either. Just have to be careful. So, and that's basically it.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Let's play a few clips and get you. Let's put you guys to sleep with this, because this is how this thing started. I'm going to get you a little bit of echo for a minute here, James, as we play some of these so you can hear them. Remind me if I don't turn it off, pretty please. Here we go. This is how this whole thing started. All right. It began with this individual by the name of was it Crawford? I labeled these so we know exactly what's going on. But just listen. This is about as boring gets. So don't fall asleep on me, because we almost fell asleep in the first 10 minutes ourselves. But I'll just burn through a few of these clips to get you the idea of how kind of slow this thing started, and then we'll get into the spicier stuff as we go. But here's where we're at.
While this topic evokes creative imaginations of many, aside from all the hype and speculation, there are important underlying issues posed by UAPs. Despite the serious nature of this topic, I have to say I'm more interested in our understanding of Chinese and Russian hypersonic weapon development, or understanding why this administration was so slow to share actionable intelligence with the Ukrainians. However, inasmuch as this topic may help us better understand unknown activities of Russia and China, I am on board. The intelligence community has a serious duty to our taxpayers to prevent potential adversaries such as China and Russia from surprising us with unforeseen new technologies. As overseers of the intelligence community, this committee has an obligation to understand what you are doing to determine whether any UAPs are new technologies or not. And if they are, where are they coming from? In general, the IC spends much of its time and resources trying to understand what we call known unknowns. When it comes to foreign nations' weapons systems and sensors, known unknowns are those features that we don't fully understand yet. The challenge associated with UAP is that they are completely unknown and require a more expansive collection and analysis effort. The intelligence community must balance addressing known threats to our national security with preventing technical surprise. We must continue to follow the facts where they lead us and ensure that there are no technical surprises.
The old known unknowns. Do you fall asleep yet? This is how this thing started, and I was like, oh, here we go. All the double talk, the hedging the words, the being very careful about, well, there are no unknowns and there are unknowns, and we lie somewhere in between. Here's part 2 of that. Don't fall asleep on me. There's good stuff here. We're talking about the Congressional UFO hearing. This is how it began. So, like I said, a little bit dry to start.
The IC must take it seriously when there are credible observations of phenomena that seem to perform in ways that could pose a threat to safe flight operations, or that could be signs of a foreign adversary's attempt to develop a strategic technological surprise against the United States. It's also essential that our pilots and others feel they can report UAPs they observe without any stigma for doing so. This is the open, unclassified portion of our hearing. We'll have a closed, classified part later. It's important for the public to know that the classification of information exists to protect national security, not to try to hide the truth. When we're trying to determine if any UAPs are new technologies being developed by foreign governments, we are inevitably going to run into classified information about what new systems and technologies we do know are in the works here or abroad. But where information does not risk national security, it should be shared with our allies and the public when feasible. I hope that we can have your assurance to this end today. It's my hope that the intelligence community will continue to try to determine the nature of UAPs we've observed, and will keep Congress fully apprised of all developments. I look forward to this hearing and continued dialogue and oversight with the intelligence community on this topic. And with that, I yield back.
All right, are you asleep yet? All right, don't fall asleep yet. I'm going to play a few more just to get us going, and you take the temperature of how this thing started. Like I said, the Congressional UFO hearing today started pretty dry, very much, like I said, like politicians speak, right? Politicians speaking just kind of puts people to sleep. That's really how this began. Let's go to Adam Shifty Schiff and hear what he had to say. He was actually the ranking member on the committee here. Let's hear what he had to say about UFOs in his own words.
Thank you, Chairman Carson, for holding this open hearing on unidentified aerial phenomenon and for your leadership on this issue. Holding a portion of our discussion today in open session is critical to the cause of transparency and openness, which was Congress's intent in authorizing and funding this new task force. The larger effort that is being undertaken to study and characterize UAP reports is an important step towards understanding these phenomenon, what we know and don't know. And I look forward to hearing more during both the open session and the closed setting about how DOD and the IC are undertaking that task. UAP reports have been around for decades, and yet we haven't had an orderly way for them to be reported without stigma and to be investigated. That needs to change. UAP reports need to be understood as a national security matter, and that message needs to go out across DOD, the IC, and the whole of the U.S. government. When we spot something we don't understand or can't identify in our airspace, it's the job of those we entrust with our national security to investigate and to report back. That is why it's important that we hold this open hearing for the public to hear directly from the Department of Defense on the steps it's taking to track, analyze, and transparently communicate the work that is being done on this issue.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Sleep yet? Test 1 2. Is anybody out there? Wake up. Here's Adam Shifty Shift, the next part. Going to just plow through a bunch of these, give you the idea of what was happening at this thing. Many of you saw this, I know, but I just want to make sure we have sort of a full representation of the entire hearing. And it does get spicy in the second half, so stay tuned for that. But here we go. Part 2 is Shifty Shift. As this thing began, it was, again, politician doublespeak and, the American people and in the best interests of spending money the right way. You know how politicians speak. Let's just go right back to it.
It is also the responsibility of our government and this panel to share as much as we can with the American people, since excessive secrecy only breeds distrust and speculation. I look forward to hearing how the UAP task force is being stood up, what challenges they still face, and how this committee can make sure the task force is able to shed light on one of the world's most enduring mysteries. I thank you gentlemen for your work, and be very interested to hear what you have to say. To me, among the most fascinating questions are these phenomena that we can measure. That is, instruments report there is something there. It is not the human eye confusing objects in the sky. There is something there, measurable by multiple instruments, and yet it seems to move in directions that are inconsistent with what we know of physics or science more broadly. And that to me poses questions of tremendous interest and as well as potential national security significance. So we look forward to hearing what you're able to report to us today in open session. And I want to thank Chairman Carson again for his extraordinary leadership on this issue, and I yield back.
And yield back. Look at these politicians sitting around just kissing each other's asses. Doesn't it make you sick? In the name of the American people and transparency. And if you don't give people the truth about things, you're just breeding distrust against the government. Oh, I see. Oh, I guess at one point they do care about this, or at least they care about saying it. They actually don't really care that that's the case. There we go. We got a couple minutes left, James. So what was your take as this thing started to unfold? Maybe you missed this part actually, but are you asleep yet, James? Wake up. Are you there? Test.
Hi. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But no. Also, I'm just curious here if anyone has set up a count for the number of times they mentioned national security in that video.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big knocks on this whole UFO game. They think that it's just another scam to get more defense spending, right? They're like, not just Russia and China, but now the UFOs they're going to land on the White House lawn and abduct, our great leader, right? Treat him nicely, please, and don't bring him back. How about that? So I mean, look, and I'm just kidding, of course, but only kind of kidding. But okay, this is how this thing started. Right, very, very dull, very like, here we go. It's going to be one of these, right, where they spend this time like an hour and a half talking, and they don't ever actually say anything. But that's not the case. It got hot and spicy. So hang tight for that. We're still taking your thoughts on this, all right, as we go tonight. We're here with James of Salcedo Paranormal. He's got a podcast called exactly that. Links in the description. Give him a follow. Good friend of mine. He's here helping us out. And Ash will maybe be along tonight as well. So Ash, the reptilian from Mars, you guys know him as well. He'll be along in a moment, hopefully. He's got some things he had to handle. And if he can make it, break out of that cave in Mars, he'll grace us with his reptilian presence. So we're still taking your thoughts on this. What happens with this? What happened with this hearing today? Are you interested? What is your take on this? Again, do you really care what the government says about UFOs and all the rest? Because, well, if you're asking me, it's hard for me to say, yeah, I really give a damn, because they are who they are. So as we get down to this, like I said, give us a call. Love to hear your thoughts on the UFO congressional hearing today. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. We're here with James of Salcedo Paranormal, and we're taking your calls as we talk about, that's right, the first UFO congressional hearing in decades. Don't go anywhere. More of all this Your calls and more Shifty Schiff when we return. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we discuss the Congressional UFO hearing that happened today. Actually happened today. It went down at 7 a.m. this morning Pacific time. And, it started out very, very boring. But did you watch it? Do you care? What do you think they said? Did we learn anything? Do we expect more from the government regarding UFOs and aliens and all the rest of that? Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link. We'll put you on the show that way as well at troubledminds.org. Just real quick before we get going, also, Fringe.fm needs your help. If you got a few bucks to spare, Fringe.fm/donations. Looking to keep the station on air. Like I said, it is free to listen to. So once in a while, like I said, things happen and some bills need to get paid. Somebody has to pay that stuff at some point. So appreciate it if you guys could spare a few bucks. Fringe.fm/donations. Let's do it. James, are you there? Test 1, 2. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. What's up, bro?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. All right, so it started out very, very boring, very lackluster, this congressional UFO hearing. But then, like I said, it kind of got interesting a little bit later. But okay, so there's more of this, right? They were talking about blah, 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 and, national security. That was a drinking game, like you said. Every time if you take a shot every time they said national security, by the end of it, you'd probably be hospitalized. So don't do that. It's a bad drinking game. But it is where we started. So we got some interesting individuals that were part of this. We've got, let's see, who are these guys? We got Scott Bray and Ronald Moultrie. These are the officials that were actually testifying today in regard to the UFO topic on Capitol Hill. And so one guy, let's see, this is Ronald Moultrie. This is he was the is the Undersecretary of Defense and Intelligence and Security. And so he was sworn in as Undersecretary of Defense of that title on June 1st, 2021. In his role, he is the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense on intelligence, counterintelligence, and security matters. Mr. Moultrie exercises authority, direction, and control on behalf of the Secretary of Defense over all intelligence and security organizations. That'll put you to sleep too. All this, but anyway, Mr. Moultrie is married and lives in Maryland. All right, there you go. So this nice fine fellow was testifying today, and so he's very high up there in the national security ranks. So you would expect him to know what the hell he's talking about. And this is Ronald Moultrie. Anything to add on this real quick, James? I'm going to burn through a few more clips just to catch us up and get us to where we can start talking about the good stuff.
No, yeah. I didn't really know any of these people. So a lot of their names are still unfamiliar to me, but I do agree. It takes a while, but it does start to get good later on, at least to a degree. So yeah, looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say about all this.
Exactly right. Okay, so let's do it. Let's get right back to these. I'm going to give you a little bit of echo, James. Like I said, just remind me if I don't fix it, and let's do it. This is Ronald Moultrie, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Intelligence, and Security. This is his intro as this thing started.
Chairman Schiff, Committee Chairman Carson, Ranking Member Crawford, distinguished members of the subcommittee, it's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. I'm pleased to be joined by Mr. Scott Bray, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, who will speak to the Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, which laid the foundation for the efforts we will discuss today. First, I'd like to thank Congress for supporting the Department's UAP efforts. The NDAA for fiscal year 2022 has helped us to establish a dedicated office to oversee processes and procedures for the timely collection, processing, analysis, and reporting of UAP-related data. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the Department's contention that by combining appropriately structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated. We know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomena. And because UAPs pose potential flight safety and general security risks, we are committed to a focused effort to determine their origins.
Okay. Asleep yet? There we go. That's part one. I'm going to just burn through a few of these clips so you guys can get the temperature of how this thing started. Again, politicians sitting around kissing each other's asses, kind of, which seems less than fun. Like I said, bear with me. We're going to just burn through this to give you an idea of what was going down, and then we will get to some spicy stuff. But still looking to hear your thoughts on this. What did you think? Did you watch this congressional UFO hearing? Were you impressed? Were you not impressed? Is this like just putting you to sleep? Trust me, I'm just saving the good stuff for the back half here and pulling the drama card out, because if we jump right to the good stuff, then we end with the lousy stuff, and you guys are already asleep. So let's put you to sleep first and wake up. So here we go. This is the same guy. This is Ronald Moultrie, part 2.
Our effort will include the thorough examination of adversarial platforms and potential breakthrough technologies, U.S. government or commercial platforms, allied or partner systems, and other natural phenomenon. We also understand that there has been a cultural stigma surrounding UAP. Our goal is to eliminate the stigma by fully incorporating our operators and mission personnel into a standardized data gathering process. We believe that making UAP reporting a mission imperative will be instrumental to the effort's success. The Defense Intelligence and Security Enterprise provides real-time support to our warfighters and mission personnel across all domains. To optimize the department's UAP work, we are establishing an office within the Office of the Secretary of Defense. That office's function is clear: to facilitate the identification of previously unknown or unidentified airborne objects in a methodical, logical, and standardized manner.
Okay, all right. You bored yet? So this is how it started. Like I said, I was very not happy with how this began, and I was like, oh God, I can't sit through an hour and a half of this. And so luckily it did get better. We probably filled in the blanks there, James, of what you missed. Are you glad you missed the first 10 minutes? Because that's pretty much the breakdown of that.
Yeah, I'm not sad about that. I'm not surprised either in a way. I highly doubted they were going to get into anything interesting right away.
Oops. Yeah. No. Of course not. And so what do you guys think? Are you bored? You're probably bored, but that's okay because you got James and me, and we're going to keep you from being bored here. But what's up, Seppuku over on Rockfin says make UAP great again. Yeah, right. And also, real quick shout out to Crabapple. Thank you for the generous tip over on Rockfin. Appreciate that so much. Like I said, if you got some bucks to spare and you don't mind a tip now and then, I appreciate it very much. It does go to the bottom line of the show and helps pay those bills as well, the phone lines and everything else. So thank you so much for that. I don't know, James. This is let's just skip it. Is there anything good here? I don't know. They're just sitting around kind of kissing each other's ass. So it starts with that. We got this Ronald Moultrie guy, and then we got this other guy named Scott Bray. Scott Bray, of course, is, let's see, who is this guy? Who is this dude? Scott Bray, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence is what Scott Bray is. And these are the two individuals that were testifying today. And I was hoping, for some celebrities or something, like the Demi Lovato sighting maybe, or maybe Stephen Greer, or, maybe Lou Elizondo. Like, that would be sweet, right? That would be sweet. But now we got these guys, these kind of stuffy politician types. But in any case, they started out pretty well. I was impressed that they, for the most part, they knew what they were talking about. So there's at least that, which, would be super embarrassing if they were like in these very high level positions and didn't know what they were talking about. But at least they kind of had an idea of what's going on with this. So this is how this began, right? Like I said, snooze fest kind of put you to sleep a little bit, but it did start to get spicy, right? We're going to get to some of the spicy stuff in a bit here. But so what did you think? Did you see this? Do you care? What do we expect to learn from the government regarding UFOs and all the rest of this? Well, they tried. They gave it their best shot today. Well, let's say a shot. I don't know if they gave it their best shot, but they tried. They said that this is in the name of transparency, and Shifty Shift saying that we don't want to foster foster suspicion and people being, not interested in the government and, or not believing the government. So, there's all that. There's all the political stuff. But I don't know, bring us the aliens, right, James? Just stop kissing each other's asses in Congress and just bring us the damn aliens, right? Where are the aliens, James?
Yeah, and I don't know. I had very low expectations, but I was also not without some hope. It did seem like they knew what they were talking about, even at points later on when it seems like they say they don't. I'm suspicious of that. So I'm sure we'll get to that later, but so yeah, it did seem like they had at least they were aware of this. But I agree with you. I was hoping for some people just besides them to be with them, at least even if it's just with them, to make a 1 or 2 minute appearance or whatever would have been, I don't know, maybe more of something for the public to talk about. I think this is definitely being talked about, obviously within the UFO UAP community, but I had a friend that I talked to tonight that didn't even hear about this, that is not into any of this stuff. So that, of course, that doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah, and let's just skip it. I'm going to skip all this boring stuff because it's going to put you guys to sleep, right? So we're going to skip all this. There's literally clip after clip after clip of just these guys just saying the same thing over and over again. And I wanted to play a few of them anyway to at least give you an idea of how this started, okay? But then also what was interesting is they brought up, did you notice this, James? They brought up Jeremy Corbell in this actual, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? They said Mr. Corbell, actually, UFO videos from Jeremy Corbell. Did you catch that part?
No, that must have been one of those rare moments I had to step away from the PC for a minute. Huh.
Yeah,
okay.
They actually brought him up. So they didn't. It wasn't more than that. It was just sort of a passing reference to him. So there's been a lot of drama too with him getting these videos from he says classified sources or people that worked on the inside with the government and on these ships and whatnot. You've seen the green triangles, right? That whole bit. Yeah, that the old bokeh, I guess you call it bokeh, BOKEH. So I'm going to pull up that actual that photo and put it up on the stream here. But have you seen that one? The Corbell release of the green pyramids in the sky?
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of those. Yeah, that is a real mystery to me as far as how is he connected? Who are these people that are giving him these things, and of course, more importantly, why? Yeah, and well, so not only that, right? He when I saw this video, remember he super hyped it. And it was like, oh, this is going to be the thing, right? This is like aliens in the sky, right? He didn't say that; it wasn't his words, but he was definitely sort of implying heavily, right? And let's see, where is this? I got the photo somewhere, I can't find it. But okay, so 40s, could you grab that photo that you dropped earlier and pop it back in the chat? I'd appreciate that, and because I'm trying to find it in there and I can't see it. But anyway, okay, so it was these green triangles in the sky, and they actually referenced that video in this hearing. So let's do that real quick and listen to that part and hear what they had to say regarding the release of these Jeremy Corbell videos. Let's see, that was 13, 15. Oh my goodness, there's so many clips here. Yeah, how about let's take a shot with this one. I think it's this one.
There it was. That's, in many cases, that's all that a report may include. And in many other cases, we have far less than this. As we detailed in both the unclassified and classified versions of the preliminary assessment released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last June, this often limited amount of high-quality data and reporting hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. As detailed in the ODNI report, if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they likely fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or U.S. industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, or a other bin that allows for a holding bin of difficult cases and for the possibility of surprise and potential scientific discovery. We stand by those initial results. Since the release of that preliminary report, the UAP Task Force database has now grown to contain approximately 400 reports. The stigma has been reduced. We've also made progress in resolving the character of a limited number of UAP encounters. For example, let me show you a couple of another video and image taken years apart in different areas. In this video, U.S. Navy personnel recorded what appears to be triangles, some flashing, recorded several years ago, off the coast of the United States. This was recorded while the U.S. Navy ship observed a number of small unmanned aerial systems in the area. And importantly, the video was taken through night vision goggles with a single lens reflex camera. These remained unresolved for several years.
Okay, unresolved for several years, and this is what Corbell was saying, that this was some spicy stuff. There's the photograph, and you guys may remember these green triangles in the sky. Here's what they said regarding that. Here's the conclusion to that, and they did identify what these things were eventually. So listen to this.
Several years later, and off a different coast, U.S. Navy personnel, again, in a swarm of unmanned aerial systems, and again through night vision goggles and an SLR camera, recorded this image. But this time, other U.S. Navy assets also observed unmanned aerial systems nearby. And we're now reasonably confident that these triangles correlate to unmanned aerial systems in the area. The triangular appearance is a result of light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by an SLR camera. Now, I don't mean to suggest that everything that we observe is identifiable, but but this is a great example of how it takes considerable effort to understand what we're seeing in the examples that we are able to collect. In this example, we accumulated sufficient data from two similar encounters from two different time periods in two different geographic areas to help us draw these conclusions. That's not always the case, though. We recognize that that can be unsatisfying or insufficient in the eyes of many.
There you go. And yes, insufficient in the eyes of many, and that's a good way to put it. But they did get to the bottom of the Corbell videos and those triangles, right? I thought it was interesting. 40's pointing this out a little bit earlier, and they in an article when they wrote about this, they left out the important context of they believe with a high level of certainty they've solved what that is, and it's not what we thought it was. Anyway, what are your thoughts? 702-957-1037. We're talking about the Congressional UFO hearings, all the details that this is going to get even more spicy. But let's go to Kelly in Colorado. What's up, my friend? Welcome to Troubled Minds. You're on with Mike and James. How are you, bro?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Did you get a chance to see this? And if not, what's your take on these clips so far?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. It was pretty interesting. So I was mentioning that I got a lot actually from this meeting. You know, it's pretty interesting. They use the wording at first, all that, the puffy stuff in the beginning is only because it's being recorded, right? So they have to get all that, bourgeois stuff out of the way so they can get into business, which it did actually. And some of those guys were asking some pretty tough questions, which was, I was kind of actually surprised. And the information that they knew about, past history of the UFOs in the government and our military. So, yeah, I was actually pretty surprised about some of that.
Yeah, it did. Like I said, we're about to get into that after we go to the top of the hour here. We'll get into the spicy stuff. But they talked about the Malmstrom Air Force Base, the shutting down nukes. They talked about the Wilson Davis notes and that document, which surprised the hell out of me. So I was like, wow, well, this is... They're actually getting into this a little bit. And, whereas, spoiler alert, there weren't any direct answers, it was good to actually have good questions kind of tossed out there. What else you got? We got probably another 4 minutes before we got to take the break here. But as you know, you're welcome to stay. But what's your take on the rest of it? You did learn some stuff. You thought there were good questions. What else can you share with us regarding your take on the Congressional UFO hearing?
There's a few things, actually. I was taking notes while I was watching it, but for me, when they very first started, right, and they were talking about the guy Scott Bray, the one from the UAP, he was from He's a task force for the Navy. But yeah, he was when he was talking about it, they don't know what some of these things are, and they were showing pictures or the videos of it. Man, that tells you right there. I don't know what else to have some people. I know they can't really come out and say it, but that, to me, that's telling me that's disclosure right there. That they don't even know what some of these things are. That's pretty interesting. That I caught some of that. But what I didn't like, or some of the guys, some of those committee members, they got them on the part where some of the history of, like I said, of UFOs in the military, which, like when he brought up Blue Book and ATIP, right? So they were saying that they actually had the goal to say that there was no information or any kind of investigation from Blue Book to ATIP, which kind of, even then, the guy who was asking the question, he was like, come on, really?
Oops, muted myself. Yeah, so I was actually I was surprised they brought up Project Blue Book, and and they even did say that there was nothing on the books from Blue Book to now, which I'm with you. That seems unlikely to me that they would have just forgot about it since 1965 or whenever that ended, 1963, something like that, and then just suddenly fired up ATIP in 2008 or whatever. That doesn't make any kind of sense. So that type of stuff makes you go, okay. Okay, I'm with you there. But it was good that they acknowledged that there did used to be a government UFO program, and it was Project Blue Book. What else you got regarding this, man?
Okay, so some of the questions, all right? So, this is what really caught my eye, or even my ear while I was watching this, was as soon as they were bringing up not only UFOs, but they were talking about underwater UFOs. And immediately they were talking about they wanted to go that. They'll talk about that in the secret meeting, not for public, not for public consumption, but that was what very intrigued me, right? And it was actually the other member. He was, I can't remember his name either, but he was the Indian gentleman. He was saying that, when he brought that up again, actually there was a few questions he was asking, and they kept saying that they wanted to take that. They couldn't have answers for that right now, so they wanted to take a lot of his questions to the secret meeting again. But he also brought up with physical objects. He wanted to know about physical objects. If these things are actually a physical object we can walk up and touch, right? And what was interesting is the answer was no, that some of these are actually almost kind of like what everybody used to, in the ufology community is that, even like the guy that would call up that old radio station, he was talking about that these things were interdimensional beings or even craft. So that kind of intrigued me too, that they were saying that not everything that you can, that was out there is that you can be able to have that it was physical objects, but more like dimensional objects, which is interesting. And then there was a guy, his name was Mr. Lloyd. He was actually against kind of like some of.
We got to go. We're going to do a break, so go ahead and finish your thought. But you're welcome to stay after the break, okay? Okay, it's cutting you out. Sorry about that. I think the music is killing you. So hang tight. We're going to be right back with you, Kelly. Don't go anywhere. We got more Troubled Minds on the way. We're talking about congressional UFO hearings. We're here with James in Michigan. We're here with Kelly in Colorado. Hang tight, Kelly. Sorry about that. Get right back to you. And what was your take on this? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds. More from Kelly, James, and of course your calls when we return. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Sorry about that, Kelly. Be with you in 5 minutes. Be right back. we are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon. Aliens.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing that. Through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
All right, so maybe,
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories or ideas or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Yo ho, yo ho. Welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and I'm here with our good friend James Salcedo of Salcedo Paranormal, and of course Kelly in Colorado. We'll get right back to them ASAP. And we're talking about the congressional hearings tonight. We do this Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific on not just the Fringe FM, but of course we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter. And a lot happened today. A lot happened regarding UFOs, congressional hearings, and all the rest of this, because they did get into talking about underwater UFOs. They did get into talking about maybe these things being not physical objects in the sky. There's a lot to it. It got, like I said, things got kind of spicy as you listened a little bit longer. So that's what we're talking about tonight. So as always, we're taking your phone calls if you want to be part of the show. What were your thoughts on this UFO congressional hearing? I've got some clips to play, some really interesting, spicy stuff, because we're getting into the good part now. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. And what are your thoughts? Of course, we are, like I said, streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter. The Fringe FM as well, broadcasting there. Real quick, too, regarding the Fringe, need some help there. Paying the bills, keeping Fringe online. Fringe.fm/donations. If everybody could give a few bucks, it would solve the problem. So I appreciate that very much if you can. Let's do it. Let's get right back to this. Thanks for being patient, James and Kelly. Let's wait to get back to James. I cut Kelly off. Sorry about that, Kelly. If you're there, go right ahead, sir. We were talking about the maybe plasma UFOs or non-physical UFOs. That was pretty wild, right?
Yeah, that was interesting. That really caught my attention too. When because that was, like I said, some of these guys were asking some pretty hard questions. That they really wanted to know. And to me, that was actually one of the first ones that, for the people, that we were, some of the questions that, a lot of people would want to ask, because when they were trying to be, not so specific, they were even digging into it more, saying, you need to explain, can you explain a little bit more, without having going into like secret stuff, right? And it was actually pretty amazing to watch, to hear some of these questions, Not one that was one that was really, like I said, the whole physical object thing, it could be a dimensional thing. That's all. I was kind of like, I was talking about that guy that was talking on, it was 8 years ago on Coast to Coast. He called in and he was talking to, about how it was a precursor to like the moon landing, and that these things are like a third dimensional or different dimensional creatures. But if that's the case, then so their UFOs would be. But yeah, another one too. His name was Mr. Sheriff, I believe his name was. He was asking a lot of hard questions because he wanted to know some of the answers to some of these questions. And one of them he was asking too about radio frequencies of these things, if they could tell, like, if the different, I know they can tell the different types of radio frequencies, if one's for like, if it was controlling the drone. So like if it was saying, maybe it could be a private company or something that maybe with the government. But again, those questions were asked and they were saying, no, that wasn't them. Or even saying that, asking if our allies or actually, our adversaries, if they had anything like that. And they pretty much said no. They have the information for that, and they don't think that it was theirs or or our allies. And one of them was like, real quick back to that, was the radio frequencies. So the radio frequencies is saying is, could they tell if that thing was sending out a frequency to somebody else, like getting around to say if it was like contacting a bigger craft. That was an interesting question too.
Yeah, they did sort of range far and wide. I was impressed with what some of the not senators, the House representatives. Some were a little more on the ball than others. Like it started out a little goofball, like I said, but then by the end they were asking some pretty good questions, I thought, and it did get interesting. And I think that's the most important part here is asking some of these questions in public with not the X-Files, a smoking man and his a group of people in a dark room, without anybody watching, sort of stuff. It was good to see. So, and I've been pretty down on this myself. Just what good's a congressional hearing going to do? Even if we didn't get answers, they were asking questions. And so to me, if you ask the right questions, that's what this is all about, right? We got Robert on the line as well. So Kelly, you're welcome to stay. I'm not going to kick you off here, but what else you got for us tonight regarding the UFO hearing? What else stood out to you?
Oh, just real quick too. I wanted to mention because that I'm ex-military and Navy, so some of the stuff they were talking about was like the reason why the Navy's involved, because when the whole the whole government stuff was involved, it goes way back when who was running our military, which was a Navy personnel at the time. But anyway, the picture that they were showing too, and I was kind of getting irritated by they couldn't freeze frame that picture so we could see what the UFO looked like, but they finally did. So I took a screenshot of it, and it's pretty interesting. It's a round shape, but the whole thing about it is it seemed like the pilot must have seen it in the air, like sitting still, because he was kind of like going around his aircraft, and that aircraft, I could tell you what it is. It's an EA-6B Prowler. That's because of the windshield of how it is, the real thick parts of it. I already know what the windshield looks like. It's an EA-6B Prowler that the pilot was operating. But when he moved to the side, you could see that thing shoot across the sky real quick. And that's the whole part, too, that interested me, that they were saying that they didn't even know what that was specifically. Because, they said they don't have enough data for it. But if you look at it, I mean, that's, it's a round object. And that thing is doing, if it was standing still and the pilot is trying to, get around that little part of the frame of the aircraft, to see that thing, man, that would rip a body in half for humans. I'm just telling you that from the G-forces. Or, someone, they couldn't, they would just instantly pass out if that was the case. And that was actually a very interesting video. I like that as well. That was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, agreed. Whatever that thing was in the sky, it seemed like a metallic orb that was zipping by super fast. And that's what we were talking about earlier when they couldn't freeze frame that damn thing. It took like an excruciating 5, 6, 7 minutes for them to actually freeze frame the thing. But okay, so what are your thoughts? 702-957-1037. James, let's get your take on what Kelly said. Kelly, you going to stick around? You're going to bounce? Up to you, bro.
I'll stick around, but okay. I'll put it on mute.
Okay, sweet. Stay right there. James, what's your take on that? And then we'll go to Robert.
Yeah, I agree. The questions were probably some of the most interesting parts to this, the best parts of this, regardless of the answers. But the questions, I would say, and then definitely the footage. I didn't watch all of it, but just the fact that they did have footage that they were showing. So those two things, I think, are definitely important, and I hope to see more of that in the future. Who knows when or how long it'll be before that happens, but I agree, and I'm really glad that Kelly called in with that information and that experience to connect it to all of this as well.
Exactly right. It's good to have somebody who knows what they're talking about regarding the military equipment that they're using there. What are your thoughts, guys? Congressional UFO hearings, were you impressed? Were you not impressed? Do you care what the government says about UFOs and aliens? Well, let's say extraterrestrial life, which they actually said in the hearing near the end. They actually used the words extraterrestrial life. I got those clips. We'll play them in a little bit, too. 702-957-1037. Let's go to Robert in Pennsylvania. What's up, my friend? You're on Trouble Minds with Mike and Kelly and James. Go right ahead.
This hearing, it was about. I'm hearing myself back. This hearing lasted just only an hour and a half. I mean, something like this should have gone on for, into the late afternoon, even up to supper time. An hour and a half is not giving this. I don't think gave this as much attention as it should have had.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Some of these committees and hearings, they do go for days and days and days and days. But yeah, they trim this one super fast, and that's a fantastic point. I didn't even think of that. We were reading yesterday some of the articles coming out, and they were talking about that there was an internal fight in the government itself, the DOD and the Navy and whatnot, about what kind of stuff they wanted to actually share with us. So maybe that was part of the brevity here. They just didn't want to sort of overplay their firsthand and maybe kind of kick it down the road a little bit, But did you watch it, Robert? Did you actually see the hearing itself?
Yes, and what stood out for me was the I don't know his title, the head of the whole thing there. That they're saying that he basically said that when that anything that came before the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, any history prior to the start of that program, they weren't investigating unless it was brought forward to them. And I forget who the congressman was that brought this up about the Motok incident. All right. I mean, here's a bunch of unidentified objects flying around our nuclear arsenal, and canceling out their ability to, just shutting them down. And he was asked about that, and he acted like he didn't know anything about it, but you could tell that he did. But when he was asked whether he had looked into that, he says he told them unless it's forwarded to them, they don't look into these things. Unless something is forwarded to them to investigate, they don't look into those things.
Which, of course, seems absurd. That seems absurd. And what they were talking about data collection in terms of video, in terms of radar signatures and things like this. But they were also saying that these old stories like this Malmstrom Air Force Base, where they supposedly shut down the nukes and the rest of this stuff, is that if it's anecdotal, they don't have it in a database because it's anecdotal. They don't actually have that radar data or whatever. That was the sort of the implication of what he was trying to say. And then again, plain stupid, like you just described. Well, if they don't forward this to us, we don't investigate it. But I mean, look, if this is really what's happening, this has been one of the main UFO narratives forever, right? Shutting down missile silos or whatnot, the nukes and things like this. So I don't know, man. It seems, like you said, they were dodging some of this. I think that's intentional.
Yeah, but God bless that congressman, for basically saying, well, I'm forwarding it to you. That's basically what he told him. I'm forwarding to you, and I want you to investigate this.
Exactly. Yeah, he said the one guy made the comment something to the effect of, well, if they don't officially send it to me, he's like, well, you don't get much more official than this. This is what we're doing right now. So that's right.
That's exactly what he said. You don't get more official than this. So I guess that they'll have to take a look at.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, for crying out loud, if anything was more of a threat to our national security, it's unidentified objects that can shut down our nuclear arsenal. And he acted like it was nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, nobody told me this, so we're not talking about it. We're not investigating this. Yeah. Yeah.
You would think he would have said. You would think he would have said what he said about when they talked about the underwater ones, the underwater UFOs. All right, when they brought that up, and he says we'll have to go to a closed session on that one. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't want to discuss that intermedium travel of the Tic Tacs going underwater or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, and they said we'll save that for the closed session. What I wouldn't pay to be a fly on that wall in the closed session to see what they're actually talking about.
Yeah, but with the Motok incident, that's an incident that I would think he would have said we'll have to go into a closed session on that one.
Right, exactly.
Instead, it was like. It's really, like he never heard about it before. And he had to have. I mean, the whole military must know about that. Also, he was asked if he ever tried to communicate with these unidentified objects. And he said I don't know how he knows this, because obviously they shut off history. Anything that came before APAC, they don't even pay attention to. But he answered that there was never any attempt ever that he's aware of to communicate with them. Like, you're in our airspace, identify yourself.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and so apparently not. I've got that clip, actually. I'll play that right after you get off the phone. But lots of good clips in the second half of this. Like I said, it started out really mundane, really boring, but then it did get kind of spicy later. They were talking about 11 different near collisions, right, is what you're describing. And the question was, so in these near collisions with UFOs, did we actually try and communicate with them, like, say, send a radio broadcast or something that said, you're in our airspace, just like you described? And they said no. They nobody did any of this. So
it's like and he basically was saying that we didn't communicate because we knew we couldn't. Did you catch that?
Yeah. I got the clip. I'll play it as soon as you get off the phone here. But yeah, it seemed like
they knew they couldn't. They knew they couldn't communicate. That tells you a whole lot, because that means they know a lot about those things.
Exactly, and at least more than they're telling us. That's for damn sure.
One more thing.
Sure.
One more thing. I can't remember who asked this, but didn't somebody ask about if there was any of these unidentified aerial phenomenons seen in space, by our astronauts or whatever?
Did they ask that question? Not that I can recall, but
I think that question was asked because it's sticking in my mind, because that would be the perfect question. Because if he would have been answered the question that yes, they have been seen in space, that would have settled the issue.
Yeah,
that would have settled the issue once and for all, that these are not of this earth.
Which they didn't want to touch. They didn't really want to go there. I mean, they at the end they kind of opened up as, we're going to go where the data leads us, and they did say the word extraterrestrial, but they didn't do a whole lot of speculating on what this stuff might be. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it was a little bit of obfuscation, a little bit of dodging some questions, but there were some good questions asked. And like I said, God bless the House representatives that actually had the let's say the sack to actually stick their neck out and ask some good questions.
Yeah, it was very. I agree with you. That last hour was. You couldn't stay awake. You could stay awake when listen to that last hour, but if I'm going to go through it, I'm going to watch it over again, because I'm pretty sure I heard somebody ask that question about whether or not these unidentified objects have been seen by our personnel in space.
Gotcha. It could be. It could be. I may have missed it.
I'm going to review that.
Right on.
I'm going to review it, and if I find it, I'll let you know.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, my man. You're the best. I appreciate the phone call. Always a pleasure. Have a great night. It's Robert in Pennsylvania. He's got a book called Stories from a Fractured Mind. Check it out. Links in the description down below. He doesn't call for me to plug his book. I do, because it's very good. And full disclosure, he sent me a couple copies. I read it, and it's a sort of Rod Serling meets Philip K. Dick. Very good stuff. All right, so 702-957-1037. James, did you hear anything, and we'll go to Kelly next as well. Did you hear anything regarding what Robert just said? Did they ask about astronauts seeing UFOs in space?
I don't remember that directly. They did ask. I know they asked if the task force has. I think it was, have they been in communication with Space Force? I know they talked about that. What their relationship was with the Space Force. I don't know if that's the right name for them or not. But they were asked that, and they said they have a good. The phrase they kept on using for a lot of different things was we have a good working relationship or something like that with, whoever, and then they mentioned Space Force as well.
Space Force. All right. Kelly, appreciate that. James Kelly, did you hear him say anything about that? Just for in case I missed it. That's why I'm asking here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I know Kelly, so I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this clip. This is exactly what Robert was talking about. I think this is important to actually hear this. A little bit of echo for you guys on Discord, but here you go. Listen to this. This is regarding collisions and UFOs.
There have been no collisions between any U.S. assets and one of these UAPs, correct?
We have not had a collision. We've had at least 11 near misses, though.
And maybe we'll talk about those 11 near misses or any place where there's close proximity. I assume, or tell me if I'm wrong, there's been no there's no communications or any kind of communication signals that emanate from those objects that we've detected, correct?
That's correct.
And have we attempted to communicate with those objects?
No.
So we don't even put out a alert saying, U.S. Identify yourself. You are, within our flight path or something like that. We haven't said anything like that.
We've not put anything out like that. Generally speaking, for example, in the video that we showed earlier, it appears to be something that is, unmanned. Appears to be something that may or may not be in controlled flight, and so we've not attempted any communication with that.
There you go. So no broadcast, take me to your leader, either coming from them or anything going out to them. What are your thoughts? Congressional UFO hearings, what's happening with this? Like I said, should we be interested in what the government actually has to say, or is it just more of the same since Project Blue Book and ATIP and all the rest? I thought there were some good questions asked. So this is where things get spicy. Hear that? Collisions with UFOs. And they did get into underwater UFOs a little bit, which they really deferred and said we'll talk about that in the closed hearing afterward, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So fascinating, interesting. There's a lot of good things that are going on with this, but we're going to keep on trucking. We're going to keep on talking. What do you think? Did you watch this actual UFO hearing? Are you interested? Is this like, who cares? Love to hear where your mind's at with this. And did you learn anything? Do you think they asked some good questions? And well, there we go. If you want to be part of the show tonight, we're here. James is here. I think we had Kelly. We'll get back to Kelly as well in a sec. Loving to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. We're here with James of Salcedo Paranormal, our good friend Kelly from Colorado, talking about the Congressional UFO hearing. What do you know about it? I'd love to hear from you. When we come back, more Troubled Minds after the break. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. We're taking your phone calls, of course, as we discuss this idea tonight. You got it. UFO congressional hearings. For the first time in decades, today, they actually were talking UFOs in the halls of Congress. It started out a little bit sleepy, a little bit dreary, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be more of the same. But then things took a turn, and we started asking and getting good questions from some House representatives. Figure that out, right? I was a little bit shocked when it kind of took a turn for that. But Kelly, are you there? I asked you a question before we bounced and took the break. I want to make sure we get back to you. Test 1 2.
Sorry, man. I had to run away from the phone real quick. But,
That's okay.
What was your question?
That's okay. Did you catch that bit that Robert was saying regarding that communication, how they tried to communicate with these things and they hadn't tried yet? What was your take on that?
That would be a complete BS story, I would say, because of course, a fighter aircraft is going to be trying to contact, especially because for the radar system is going to let them know if it's a foe or friendly. That's just how we know. There's different aspects to that, but and that's why the information they didn't really want to give that out actually either, because about if we have the technology to decipher which was, and they kind of said they more or less said yes, but they don't want to that they can't get into detail for that because a lot of that stuff is top secret too, on aircraft and stuff, the people who work on those. But yeah, I wouldn't believe that because they would of course they were trying to contact these things if they're in midair with them, identify yourself, can you hear me or something. But just like the one question too you were going to bring up was about if he asked if the military has ever fired at these things, and I'm like, and when he answered no, I was like, really? I guess some about the Battle of LA,
Yeah, and some other things too. They've said that that fighter jets have actually tried to engage with UFOs in the past. Let's play that clip real quick. Let me play that, and you can hear exactly what we're talking about. So they asked the question. Well, I'll just let you hear it straight from the horse's mouth. This is regarding shooting UFOs. Then we'll get into the Wilson Davis documents after this. This starts to get super wild.
Okay, so and I assume we've never discharged any armaments against a UAP, correct?
That's correct.
How about wreckage? Have we come across any wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you?
The UAP task force doesn't have any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas.
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed session, sir.
Okay. I think one of the biggest questions that I have is we say with a lot of probability, we say they, quote unquote, probably do represent physical objects, close quote. When we say probably, is that because we cannot conclusively say that they are physical objects?
Hear that? In like 1 minute, this dude was asking 3 really great questions. And I can't keep all the names straight of who was asking these questions. But this is like, hey, this is the type of stuff we talk about on Troubled Minds. This is exactly like, hey, are they underwater? Are these non-physical things? What is going on up there, right? And of course, I'll play the rest of that clip in just a sec. They deferred because they don't want to answer, again, we'd rather not talk about that. We'll wait till the closed session to talk about sensors underwater and UFOs underwater. What was your take on that one, James, regarding the underwater UFOs? Then we'll go back to Kelly. Then we'll get into Wilson Davis, because this is when this thing literally turns on its head.
Yeah, the underwater is definitely a huge aspect to all of this. That, and then the physical or non-physical thing. Because just real quick, if we're getting into that, if there's stuff that's non-physical, then what does that mean? Does that go to consciousness? Does that go to other dimensional? Like I think a couple people said earlier. You said earlier, that opens up a whole other section of possibilities there. So no, I was. This is definitely, once the questions started coming like this was where it got interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Your take on that, Kelly, the underwater systems and the way he answered that question?
Yeah, that's the one I was actually talking about earlier, was those questions there. I was like, wow, man, those are great questions. Just like you were saying, it's the type of stuff that, we kind of ponder here on this show. But yeah, man, that was a great question, because with some people, I don't know if a lot of people know, but especially in the military, and when we try to apply for jobs that have to do with, like, being a submarine or even being an oceanic investigator, right? You can be attached to some of these what we would call a squadron or whatever, but some of these outfits that we could get to. That a lot of that stuff, having to deal with underwater, you have to sign a lot of secret agreements. You're not to disclose anything, and that's the really trippy part about it. I'm like, really? I mean, isn't that part of the planet? What do you need a secret disclosure for that? And the secrecy. You swear to secrecy, not to talk about anything, and that's even like working for, I believe, with NOAA. You have anything that you're finding deep underwater. Why is that? And when as soon as they immediately went to say we need to go to secret sessions for it, you have to, when they don't want to answer stuff like that, that they're hitting a nerve, and there's a lot of truth to what the question they're asking.
Exactly right. And so it was a good question again. So he talked about the underwater UFOs. He talked about have we ever shot at UFOs? He talked about crash retrievals. Do we have in our possession any sort of craft that crashed that we were able to retrieve the materials from the craft itself? He asked in 1 minute. He asked these three questions, which is like, damn, finally, like somebody's actually talking about this stuff, right? That's a good thing. I was shocked, to be perfectly honest, when it got to the back half here and they started actually discussing this stuff. I was like, no way, like these guys are actually kind of on the ball with this. I was expected some fluff BS that they're kind of just putting us on a little show and then they're going to take off and just be like, whatever, high five behind the scenes, right? The WWE wrestling sort of situation. But this is when it got crazy. Now, the Wilson Davis docs, right? That memo, the Wilson Davis memo. Okay. Now, the story goes a little something like this. Back in what was the thing here? I got it on Reddit. So back in 2002, all right, Admiral Tom Wilson was actually met with Eric Davis in the EG&G parking lot building just south of the Vegas airport here in Vegas, right? They met in some like the backseat of an SUV, and they were talking about special access programs. They were talking about the crash retrievals. They were talking about Roswell type stuff and saying that this stuff exists and the government has it. It's just so well kept, sort of maybe off of the government, let's say, property, that they have these different contractors that are actually kind of overseeing this information. There's a whole thread here on the complete summary of the Wilson Davis memo. Check it out. And they have the actual documents themselves linked as well. You can actually read the exact thing word for word. We've gone over this in the past and read it. But the craziest part regarding this now, the Wilson Davis memo, is that they're talking about crash retrievals. Actually, hey, look, alien craft have crashed, and we have programs in the United States government that have gone and actually retrieved these physical things. And again, this kind of lends back to the Bob Lazar story a little bit, right? Like I said, I know he's a very polarizing figure in ufology and the rest of that. I don't want to get into Bob Lazar per se, but also it kind of seems to line up. This is super weird, right? So check this out. So the Wilson Davis, the memo itself, is talking about crash retrievals and special access programs. It's a little more complicated than that, of course. Eric Davis is an astrophysicist, and of course, Admiral Wilson was an admiral in the United States Navy. And so, they said that they had a conversation regarding this, okay? But check this out. Now, I was shocked because this Wilson Davis stuff is highly rejected by folks like John Greenwald Jr., the FOIA guy, right? Because he's like, no, this is not an official thing. It's an unofficial thing, so we can't really corroborate where it came from. So it's we have to treat it like it's hearsay. Well, listen to this. They actually brought up the Wilson Davis document in this hearing. This is when I was like, no, shut up. We are not talking about this. Listen to this.
And then finally, are you aware of a document that appeared around 2019, sometimes called the Admiral Wilson Memo or EW Notes Memo?
I am not.
You're not.
Are you checking?
I'm not personally aware of that.
Okay. This is a document in which, again, I'm not commenting on the veracity. I was hoping you would help me with that, in which a former head of DIA claims to have had a conversation with the Dr. Eric Wilson and claims to have sort of been made aware of certain contractors or DoD programs that he tried to get fuller access to and was denied access to. So you're not aware of that?
I'm not aware, Congressman.
In my 10 seconds remaining, then I guess I just would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to enter that memo into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Hear that? So they entered into the congressional record the Wilson Davis memo, which talks about crashed UFOs and a special access program. Kelly, what's your take on that? And then we'll go to James. You caught that bit, right? That's what he was talking about. And he actually submitted that for the record. Wow. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, they're talking about this stuff. I can't believe they're talking about this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That was and this is where, I wanted to watch to see if it was going to be just like you. I thought it was going to be nothing like a big old nothing burger again. But no, they were asking hard questions. They were actually, made them look like fools. Like these guys didn't want to act like they didn't know what they're talking about. But again, that's why for me, I just go back to, if they don't want to talk about it or act like they don't know about it, they know about it. They're just not going to say something. And the reason why they're not saying, they wouldn't say something about it is because, that was a pretty hard-hitting investigation that happened, an admiral, coming out and, talking about this stuff. That was, and agree, I agree with you. That was actually, I was like, wow, I was actually very surprised. That's what I said. I got a lot out of this, this congressional hearing.
Yeah, and crash retrievals. And so for the record, as far as I understand it, so he actually misspoke in that clip. He said Dr. Wilson. He meant Dr. Davis. He's talking about Eric Davis, who does work for a contractor. I don't know the exact details of who he works for. That might even be classified for all I know. But he does work for the government under sort of this, maybe not the same sort of special access program, but he maintains, the idea is the leak of this memo, the Wilson memo, is from Eric Davis because he was a guy involved in the conversation, and I think he's backed up the claims, right? But Wilson, the admiral, has denied it entirely and said that never happened, and I never talked about that stuff. But I think in terms of kind of covering your ass, you would have to say that, right? Because that's like you can't be spreading information that you can't. You just can't. It's like a classified stuff. Once you get past a certain level of sources and methods, and when we're talking about stuff like this, you would have to cover your ass. So who knows, right? Who knows who to believe? Not to say that Wilson's a liar, but of course, I think when you're talking about classified information that that maybe you did leak. Let's say maybe that you would have to say no, I never said that, right? That would be standard. So it makes sense for me that he declined to comment on that and said, no, I never said that. So there's that. What did you get out of that, James, regarding that, the Wilson memo bit? Did it surprise you? I'm sure you're familiar with that Wilson Davis thing, right?
Yeah, it's been talked about on all the different, I'd say like podcasts, a lot of different podcasts over the years. There's been a lot of discussion about that. And I was surprised. All this really did surprise me. I know I kind of talked earlier about how I wasn't really expecting a lot. But really, I think there is a lot there. You just have to really listen to it. Because they do, a lot of the time, they do talk in that kind of politician kind of, that way. But also, I think it's important to pay attention to what they don't say and how they say, no, we haven't heard of this or that. I don't believe most of that when they said anything like that. It just didn't seem honest to me.
Yeah, it didn't. And so as always, right, like not lying, but just omitting the full story here, right? Now, here's the thing from Brian Bender. He's a notable figure on Twitter. He's got a check mark, so that tells you all you need to know about him. He's an important VIP, right? He said this, and he's completely correct. He said, one thing is certain. Eric Davis can't hide behind at Aerospace Corp anymore. I guess maybe that's who he works for, Aerospace Corp. The public deserves, he says, to hear his full recounting of this episode, preferably under oath before Congress. Now, this is the crazy part, right? So once this actually gets sort of as he said, I'd like to put this actually on the record, in the congressional record now, this Wilson Davis document, which again, you could read the entire document in full. I've got all the links down below in the description, as always, right? And then a nice write-up on Reddit describing it all sort of in sequence. It's an in-depth story, but it literally talks about actual crash retrievals, actual crashed UFOs, and secret access programs that are not only collecting those pieces, but also at some point, you got to guess, doing reverse engineering on that stuff, right? So, I mean, that's wild to me that we even got there. But well, here we are. Anything else on that, Kelly?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about too. That of course it'd be a denial, because if they was to say yes, we know about that, that would open up so many cans of worms for them that they would, that like all the conspiracy theories that they would, that they're claiming would be true. Just like you're saying, reverse technology, all that stuff. So yeah, they're gonna say no. They just want as far from that as possible, so that's why they didn't even acknowledge that. Exactly.
And so we'll see. So if somehow this is now followed up on this Wilson Davis thing, maybe they do bring them in and have them testify under oath. Like I said, the plot thickens. The plot definitely thickens here when we start saying, okay, well, if this is all BS, that's fine. But let's do an investigation and find out if it is actually all BS. And there you go. So there's some other, let's see, what else do they have? What about, here's another thing that was near the end, and I'm not sure a lot of people caught this, but listen to this. So they're not only talking about UFOs and the rest of this, they're talking about disinformation agents, and whether that's going to be foreign adversaries or whether it's going to be the American people. Listen to this. I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of echo for just a sec. I was a little bit shocked when I heard this, but this is kind of what came up, and then we'll get into them discussing alien life as well. But listen here.
So just taking that a step further, so that misinformation, false narratives, manufactured, so what are the consequences? Are there legal consequences? Are there examples that you can give us where people have been held accountable by this misinformation or disinformation?
I can't give you, any examples where somebody's been legally held liable for putting something out there, but...
Well, I guess what's the deterrent from people engaging in this activity?
I don't know. I don't have that answer. That's something that, welcome the dialogue with Congress to talk about that with the members who, help legislate those laws to say what should be the legal ramifications that we could use to potentially hold individuals accountable, whether it be citizens or information that might be injected into our media by other forces or other countries, if you will.
Did you hear that? They're talking about consequences of people spreading disinformation regarding the UFO topic. What does that sound like to you? That sounds a lot like 1984 to me, if we're being perfectly honest. Did you catch that part, Kelly?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that earlier. I didn't want to get into it because I know you were wanting to bring it out through the show, but yeah, that was another one. Who was that? That was Mr. Lloyd I was talking about. He's the one. I mean, it was. I could see the whole misinformation, but he was talking about people people that have a lot of UFO followers, on YouTube and stuff like that. He kind of was adding those guys in there too, even our shows too, talking about stuff like this, sharing this type of information. Not only that, but then they wanted to add misinformation and stuff like that. But yeah, I took that as that's kind of an overreach there, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, this is what the way Congress thinks about things too, right? It's just like, come on now. I'm going to play one more clip and then we'll finish this up. James, what's your take on that? Did you catch what they said? That's like Ministry of Truth type stuff, right? Hey, you're not allowed to speculate on this, and what kind of consequences should we expect?
Yes, that's just further going to be tightening their way of looking at things and making it harder for any other way to be present in any kind of conversation. They don't want conversation, I don't think, judging just on that.
Exactly right. Quick shout out to Robert over on the Rockfin, called in a little bit earlier. Thank you for the generous tip. I appreciate it. He says, Michael, Ronald Moultrie did say in answer to whether hardware was recovered from these UAPs, he said a flat no, but admitted other agencies may be in charge of UAP info they have not offered to share with his commission, which was the UAP task force. So it is interesting that we have a flat no on crash retrievals, but then we have a congressperson bringing up the Wilson and Davis memo, which is like, the plot thickens, the plot thickens. Here we go. So this is where this sort of ended up. Well, we got a third hour come up with Troubled Minds off of the radio here, so we're going to keep talking about this. But this is just kind of to wind this up and give you an idea of where this landed. And listen to this. This is actually a clip of them literally talking about extraterrestrials and alien life in Congress. Check this out.
So how do you divide these? How do you separate your responsibilities where you get all these reports from folks who maybe in good faith, maybe not, believe that you should be investigating every possible report of a extraterrestrial incident? I'll start with you, Mr. Moultrie.
Sure, indeed, Congressman, and thank you for the question. It's important that we, as a part of this effort, really build out the relationship that we have with others, including NASA, and for the reasons that you just pointed out. So there are elements in our government that are engaged in looking for life in other places, and they have been doing that for decades. Right? They've been searching for extraterrestrial life. There are astrobiologists who have been doing this too. We're a part of that same government, and so our goal is not to potentially cover up something if we were to find something. It's to understand what may be out there, examine what it may mean for us, if there are any, from a defense perspective, any national security implications or ramifications. But then to work with organizations as appropriate, if it's a weather phenomenology with NOAA, if it's a potential for extraterrestrial life or an indication of extraterrestrial life with someone like NASA.
Did you hear that? Actually talking about extraterrestrial life inside the halls of Congress. Yeah, that happened today. Again, could it all be kabuki theater and a big show to throw us off and a bunch of BS? Maybe. But also, they're talking about this now. So, hey, I've been a naysayer about congressional hearings. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I underestimated the actual ability of our representatives to ask smart questions about this, and they seem to be on the game. So there we go. We got, like I said, we got a third hour Troubled Minds coming up. James here, a good friend of mine. Please give him a follow. He's got a podcast called Salcedo Paranormal. He does paranormal stuff 5 nights a week. You can find the link in the description down below. And that's that. That wraps this up for radio time. And let's do, you stay right there, Kelly. You're welcome to stay as long as you want. I appreciate you stopping in here and doing your homework and taking notes. And thank you both to you and James. We're going to keep on trucking. So as we get off the radio, it goes a little something like this. If you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. If you're listening to us on any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. And it ends like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. When you're good, you're good. We're still doing this. We're here with Kelly in Colorado, James in Michigan, and we're talking about the Congressional UFO hearings. Did you think this was good? Did you think it was bad? Did you watch it? Are you interested? Are you not interested? Do you think they're lying to us? Do you think it's all a bunch of horse shit, kabuki theater, and a distraction from something else? Love to hear your thoughts. Still doing this at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Looks like we got MJ in Virginia on the phone. We got Kelly and James, and of course your calls as well. 2-minute break, more Troubled Minds coming up. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. right, let's do this. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. I'm taking your phone calls. We're discussing this, the actual UFO hearing in Congress today. Piping hot news, hot off the press. This just went down. It was at 7 a.m. Pacific time. They started, and they were actually talking about UFOs in the halls of Congress. The Wilson Davis document, crash retrievals. They were talking about all kinds of stuff that I never thought they'd even touch. And, well, they did. So, Color me surprised, and like I said, it started out pretty boring. Like Kelly was saying, sort of just the pleasantries of getting down to business. But once they got down to business, boy, shit changed super fast. So, loving to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about this? Do you think that anything this pushed the needle forward toward actual disclosure, or again, I'm always open to the idea that this is just all kabuki theater, a bunch of horse shit, and they're trying to fool us. So, what do you think? 702-957-1037. We got MJ on the phone. Go to in just a sec. Anything to add to that, James? And then we'll go to Kelly, and then we'll go to MJ. What's up, James? Welcome back.
Yeah, I think you brought up an important point too, though. This is all definitely good if it is, in fact, not just theater. Unless it's both. I guess there's that option too. I guess the main thing is just to keep all of these possibilities in mind going forward. But I am looking forward to seeing what comes of this either way.
Amen to that. Kelly, what's your take on you think it could be a bunch of horse shit, like they're just trying to lead us astray with some stuff we want to hear?
I mean, sometimes you kind of have to look at like the timing of some stuff, but I think this was supposed to be part of like that whole Donald Trump thing where they had the paperwork, and then this was supposed to come out, and this is the one I've been wanting and waiting for. But I know we weren't going to get any like hardcore saying yes, these guys are from Alpha Centauri or something like that. We're not going to get that. I don't think they'll ever even say that. I mean, but who knows? If maybe future years down the road. But I mean, like I said, we're talking about it. The questions were actually pretty hard. I believe they were questions again that people would be wondering themselves. Pondering, like not just the way, and they weren't just accepting like certain wording. They wanted to know exactly what you were what they were the information they were going to give out. Like. Explain yourself in detail then, you know what I mean? So I like that, the part about it, and maybe it was, I don't know if it was just all for show, but I mean, again, at least, for me, after all that, what I take away from it was, that's more or less disclosure, saying that they don't know what these craft are, they know that it wasn't, adversaries or allies or a government or, with private companies. But they didn't take that away from it. But I had all conclusions of all UFO sightings, but some of the ones that they've been talking about, and I'm pretty sure they are all over it. But yeah, there's some that they can't explain. Either they already know about it, that they're not from here. There's just letting us know that hey, we're not alone. So I mean, that's part of the disclosure you want to hear. I mean, that's what I took away from it at the very end.
Yeah, like I said, I was a little bit surprised they actually started talking about extraterrestrial life. I was like, whoa. This, short of, like you said, declaring they're from Alpha Centauri or something like that, or the Sirius system, that's close enough for me. I think it's a hell of a first shot. Robert had a good point, too, saying that, they only did it for an hour and a half. They could have done this all damn day. Like look, if they took us there to ask questions, man, we could blow it up and ask them some crazy stuff, right? And that, of course, they probably wouldn't be able to answer, but there's a lot of good questions to be asked, that's for sure. Appreciate you, Kelly and James. Hang tight. Let's go to MJ in Virginia. What's up, bro? You're on Trouble Minds with Mike and James and Kelly. Go right ahead. What's on your mind? What do you think about the congressional hearings?
It's, I would say, a lot of smoke and mirrors. They've taken over the scenario of it. They changed it from UFO to UAP.
That wasn't necessary, but they changed the name so they control the name. And then now they had the congressional hearings. A lot of the questions to me were basic elementary questions. I didn't, it's like, okay, those things kind of go on. You want to know some of the stuff, but it's just basic questions. The fact that they're asking if they shot him down, that's destructive. The aliens, these intelligent beings aren't going to be caught off guard by that. Secondly, they have to mention the word aliens, because if they didn't, they're going to have to explain the technology as being ours.
Which is exactly, they did discuss that a little bit in adversarial technology, or is this ours, sort of drones and things like this. They didn't do too much of that. It was kind of like that, closed session type stuff. But they did bring it up. They did bring it up sort of in the periphery. But you're right. If they declare this is not ours, then it's a declaration one way or the other, right? Then you're saying it's not ours, it is ours, right? And so I think they're going to be very careful with answering that direct question. So I think you're very right there.
Yeah, and when they talk about it, they can't give a disclosure question or answer. They can't do it. That means they're going to have to admit to 95 to 98% what you see in the sky is ours, and it's very advanced technology. It's not simple little stuff. It's way advanced, and that's what a lot of people think they see a UFO. It's actually ours. It's not that often you're going to see them. I've seen them, both. And it's more ours than theirs, but they do trickle in. The problem is they do know about this. They know some of the bases in the ocean, Antarctica, the military. There are certain branches that are aware of it, but they're not going to be able to communicate to them because they're military. You or I, they're going to trust because it's on an individual level, and they've been introducing themselves to me over 60 years or so, ever since I was probably 6 or 7 years old. That's how long it's been going on. So I have an introduction to them, and that's still not to the point where they're willing to show themselves completely. They don't come after you. You have to be mentally prepared for that, because that is a change. The military wants to run in as the military and control a narrative, and find out what they got and back engineer and see. They've already back engineered stuff. That's why they're getting some of the technology. But the aliens just aren't going to allow it. That's not something they're going to do. The military is going to try to take it by force. It's not going to happen. If I were to, ask some questions, I get shown stuff, but they're not going to do it with the military.
Yeah, like you said, it's a declaration of it's ours or it's not, or the rest of that. And we have speculated, like you said, that there's a ton of stuff up there that's ours that they'll just never admit because, they want to have that obfuscation of, wink, wink, maybe it's aliens, right? And I think that's the craziest part about it. So what do you expect from this, MJ, this discussion today? Like you said, some of these questions you thought were basic, elementary, et cetera. And you're right, in some cases. I disagree in other cases. Do you think this leads to another one and another one where they actually get something done here in the halls of Congress? Do you think this will actually become a thing, or is this going to just fall by the wayside?
I think it's a way to launder money. I think it'll be going on for a little while. There's something I get about somebody in there that has an honest interest in what's going on. And they want someone around in there that has this honest interest that's basically fresh, a little naive, wants to find out, one's hungry, and I have a funny feeling they're going to get to that point, like Mulder, okay, and it's going to get stopped right there. They're going to go so far with it. When you get too deep into it, you get shut down. They shut you down, and it's going to be the military and partially the aliens or extraterrestrials, however you want to, talk to them, but you're going to get shut down. They don't want you going any further. And a lot of the questions that, that the information comes out, you're not going to be able to understand or comprehend or handle anyways. We're not at that level. The military is not at that level, but they have back engineered stuff and understand some of the technology now of space and time and time warps. Like I told you, I've seen us using portals. I've seen a black triangle go through a portal. Whether that was our black triangle, their black triangle, I don't know. This type of thing, but there's just so much. Every once in a while they pop through.
Okay. All right. So it's as always, right? It's complicated. This is always complicated. How much of this is ours? How much of it is theirs? And well, I don't know. Regarding this, the rest of these details on the hearing itself, I'm actually cautiously optimistic, at least that they're asking some of the right questions. I was shocked because think about this. Think about this, MJ. They actually brought up that Wilson Davis memo, which literally refers to crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft that have been recovered by the U.S. government. They actually addressed this and asked these guys directly if they've heard of this. And they both went, no, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But they asked. And so I think it's important. Even if we get stonewalled or get no answers on that stuff, I think it was some important steps today. Like I said, and I've been down on this, right? This whole idea of the Congressional UFO thing, because I didn't expect it to be anything close to this. I thought the first 30 minutes of this would be like the entire thing. Stuffy people denying everything and saying, well, we're trying to find out what the aerial clutter is. It was kind of like that until it wasn't. And so I don't know. Call me cautiously optimistic. Yeah, there you go. There's my take, my man. What else you got for us tonight?
Yeah, well, they have to open up some because we've seen too much. So they can't come in the backyard and be like 50 years behind and have the clutter talk like say just stuffy talk. They've got to come out with something because they know that we've seen enough. And there's enough experiencers and enough information running around out there that we've seen something and they know it. So they have to address it to where they control that narrative. It's like they want to, you can only go so far with it, and they're thinking about shutting you down if you're doing conspiracy kind of thing. And it's like, really? As soon as I hear that to means that they want to control the narrative completely, but they've got to put enough information out there to bait the hook, but not enough to keep people actually moving towards it. They figure it's a committee, and you have to go to the committee. You can no longer go to each other or you MUFON or other things, and they're going to start controlling MUFON even more. To me, it's just a matter of trying to control the narrative. So it sort of it's out there, but they control the information that goes out and how much people are and aren't actually getting experiences with it. And just shutting people down to a certain extent so they have a flow of it and they sort of tug it along. They pull it instead of us pushing it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Maybe this is all just narrative building, and they're sort of taking the bull by the horns regarding the UFO thing. So yeah, I can see that. I've changed my mind a little bit. Like I said, I was super down on this, but I'm surprised they asked some of these questions that they did, and now the Wilson Davis documents are actually on the record at Congress. Maybe they actually call in Wilson and Davis to testify under oath regarding this stuff. I think that's fascinating. If there's people in the know that actually have said that there's crash retrievals going on, then let's hear it. Let's put these guys under oath and ask them the questions. You're the best, my friend. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate the call.
Yeah. Do they have like a phone number or a website?
For who?
For this congressional hearing or committee.
I don't think so. It's called the UAP Task Force, the UAPTF, which is a newly created thing within about a year or so. So that's what they're talking about. It's like a new thing, but they're working on staffing it. I think they just hired the lead of it finally. But I don't know if you can actually reach them. I'll look into that for you. Okay, I'll look into that, and if I can get you a link or a phone number, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Right on. Appreciate the call. You're the best. MJ in Virginia, 702-957-1037. Great stuff from him as always. Great stuff from Kelly and James as always. Let's go to James. So what's your take on that? And then we'll go to Kelly and we'll just keep on trucking. Lots of stuff to talk about and think about as always.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm hearing that go. Or at least I think it's gone now. There we go. I do agree that there's definitely a lot of they're still trying to control the narrative, definitely. And I'm not surprised to hear that there's more of ours than maybe they even want to admit. I've always felt like, and I've heard this, and I feel like it's probably true, at least it's definitely possible, that the various parts of the military or government are so many years or even decades ahead of what we know, and So that's definitely part of it. Although that makes me wonder then why. It makes me think that if that's the case, then part or all of Congress is not even aware of that advanced tech in that case. And that's odd in a way as well. But no, I always love hearing from MJ, just because of he experiences things, and I know a little bit what that's like. Not necessarily the same things, but still, I'm always glad to hear from him.
Amen, 100%. Kelly, take on what MJ said, or anything else you want to kind of chip in here, because there's still a lot that we kind of left out on the table here that we haven't really touched regarding the Congressional UFO hearing.
Yeah, man. You can only take this stuff as still as a grain of salt. It's still the government. You know what I mean? I understand that, but at least they're showing, that there's an interest, and they even actually held a hearing on it, right? That's it's a move towards something, and that's the only reason. That's the only way I'm gonna actually even take this. But the questions again were actually phenomenal questions in my mind. They were actually pretty good without having to go into, again to what they claim is secret, or for, or secret for the country or whatever. But again, they can't just come out and say it. There's got to be some kind of, there's always going to be a holdback. They're not going to give you the whole pie. They're only going to give you pieces of it. But again, it seems like some of those guys that were on there were actually, they were pretty hard nosed. One guy, I need to look back and get these guys' names off their name tags, but he was saying like, I think it was Mr. Who was it? Mr. Scott, or it could have been Ronald. But one of them were saying, kind of like blew it off, saying that they didn't want to waste taxpayer money, and that actually pissed him off because he was like, he kind of shot back at him, like don't make this, we can make this more, make it a little bit harder, I took it as. He kind of, because he fired back like, yeah, that taxpayer money, my ass. He kind of like fired back in that kind of aspect. So I mean, like, I look at that again too. It's like they could have drugged this out, for even longer. But why do that? They need to try to get information even when they're, when they're into secret in the secret meetings. You don't want to piss them off, or that's why the whole. Like you were saying, kissing each other's ass. They have to do that because if you don't, it's all pageantry. But why would you want to piss somebody off? They wouldn't want to tell you anything anyway. Even if they did have the information, they're like, man, fuck this guy. I ain't gonna tell him nothing.
Yeah, and it is. I'm glad it didn't actually devolve into like partisan bickering, because so much of that on Capitol Hill turns into exactly that stuff. Well, you don't want to spend the money to save the babies, and they're like, well, you don't want to spend the money to save the seniors, right? It's like I'm glad it didn't turn into that. And you're right, there was sort of like a little bit of testy moment there when that actually happened. So at least they let it go and didn't like press it, like trying to blame Joe Biden or Donald Trump or I'm over it. I'm not interested in that shit. Like, let's talk about other things. You know what I'm saying? So regarding this too, what's your take on kicking the can down the road? Do you think this is a start of something good? Is this going to maybe they do this every 6 months, or where do you think this heads with all those good questions? I agree with you. They asked some good questions. Where does it go from here?
Well, probably nowhere, but I would hope. I mean, if it was okay, let's say we were just, we were actually, there was no crash retrieval, there was no Roswell or anything, but we were just finally trying to, we're acknowledging that that there's something else besides what's on this planet. What also is interesting, where they're saying, working with other countries of trying to like identify these things, share information, but yet, not how we got this information. That's the thing about it with like radar systems that they were talking about. Because if you can't give up that information, you're giving up also that you have the technology of finding out what these things are. And you really don't want to give that type of information out to adversaries per se, or even like, people that we call our friends, You don't want to give that type of information out. But they said that they were sharing some stuff with, I'm pretty sure with some allies. But, and they know that other countries like China and everybody else has got some kind of aerial phenomenon identification task force like we do, so it's like nothing new. That's what I'm saying, man. It's bigger than that. Yes, in the whole round perspective, yes. But I like the fact that this was pretty, it was pretty direct forward. They were, it got a little heated in a couple spots. It seemed, these guys were like on edge. They tested their knowledge on like history of the government and the military and like what we've got. They played dumb on it. But, they put them in some tight spots where they had to answer the question, or, they're telling them that, we can't answer right now. We'll have to do it later. But I just want to add one more thing. They were adding also later on, right before closing, they were saying that, trying to add Space Force into it, the information, sharing information with Space Force and blah, blah, blah. I just want to add that, man, they got to change the name of that department, man.
It sounds so stupid, doesn't it?
It does, man. It sounds so dumb. Space Force, man. Why don't they use like Starfleet or some shit like that? Even that sounds better than Space Force. Sounds ridiculous.
Agreed. We got the Navy, the Air Force, right? The Marines, all the rest of that, and then we got Space Force. It's like unimaginative, and well, there you go. That's what happens when you let Donald Trump create things. There you go. Fantastic stuff as always, Kelly. You're the best. I got more clips to play. As always, you're welcome to stay, and let's keep on doing this. There's more of this. Let's get to that Malmstrom Air Force Base thing. We didn't play those clips. I'm going to play a couple more, and then we'll keep on trucking, talking about this, the nuclear stuff. But listen, we're going to get to Mike Gallagher. Mike Gallagher, there's going to be memes on Twitter about what a legend Mike Gallagher is. Listen to this. This guy is the guy that kind of turned this entire thing on its head, this hearing, and started asking some really great questions. Listen to this. A little bit of echo for you guys if you talk, but here we go. Gallagher going off, asking about Project Blue Book. Listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to join this hearing. I really appreciate the witness's testimony. Mr. Moultrie, as the chairman mentioned, DoD had an initiative to study UFOs in the 1960s called Project Blue Book. It's also been well reported in our briefing and in other places that we have more recent projects, specifically ATIP. Could you describe any other initiatives that the DoD or DoD contractors have managed after Project Blue Book ended and prior to ATIP beginning? Did anything also predate Project Blue Book?
So I can't speak to what may have predated Project Blue Book. I mean, of course, there's Roswell and all these other things that people have talked about over the years. I'm familiar with Blue Book. I'm familiar with ATIP. I haven't seen other documented studies that have been done by DoD in that regard.
So you're not aware of anything in between Project Blue Book and ATIP?
I'm not aware of anything that's official that was done in between those two. Okay. Hasn't been brought to my attention.
Oh, not aware of anything official. It hasn't been brought to my attention. Again, very much like you guys have been saying all night, like you got to not just listen to what they say, you got to listen to what they don't say and how they say it, right? I'm not familiar with that. It has not been brought to my attention, right? I can't speak to Project Blue Book and, what happened between this and between that, right? And that and ATIP. But like you said, Kelly, it seems like that's a horseshit answer. It seems like they're lying. Or right, like... maybe this stuff is like these special access programs where they're only read into particular portfolios based on a need to know. I mean, they say in the Wilson Davis documents specifically that even presidents aren't read in on some of these programs. So what do you think there regarding that? Are they full of shit, Kelly? You were saying that earlier, but there's the actual clip.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at some of that stuff, I kind of look at the time frame and stuff like that when they started doing that. That's when the government stopped using so much, like, universities and their own scientists. They go into, I believe they would start going into like private sector, so there was no where they have to share that information, because if you give it to the private sector, kind of like, what's his name? Well, he's been working with the government for a very long time. God, he's what the hell is it? He owned Skinwalker Ranch for a while.
Oh, Bigelow. Yep.
Bigelow. Okay, so if you're giving it to like Bigelow, right? He can do whatever, and that's why he's got. That's why if you listen to him too on his interview with that one lady. He was telling her straight up, and they were like, she was asking like, well, what if you're a billionaire, more or less your status, and you got these people, claiming that you're crazy, that you're talking about UFOs. He's like, he literally came out, I don't give a damn. He goes, man, I've been working with he's telling me, he wants to tell you literally, but he does, in a certain way that, hey, I've been a privy to a ton of shit, and he knows that even these creatures are walking around us, walking right next to us. Like, he's telling you straight up. And that stuff like that, is like, I mean, come on. Yeah, that's these guys, if you're using those type, these private sector companies, you don't have to, you don't have to explain yourself anything. But that's the thing about it. How secret can you keep it? And obviously, Bigelow's company, he's been doing it for years, and I'm pretty sure there's a few other, and now, we got this space race going on with Elon Musk and the weirdo, he's, all these guys are going to run into something, film something, or be a privy to a lot of the stuff that, if you're heading to space, I'm pretty sure you're getting a lowdown on something, and they're going to tell you not to share with the general public, to keep it to yourselves. They're going to have them sign disclosures, all that stuff, just like underwater too, like we were talking earlier. I mean, that's when I first found that out, like, I wanted to go in there, and try to maybe do it underwater. Because when I first joined the Navy, my hearing was really, they said it was like a dog, that's what he explained it. And he wanted me to go with sonar tech. And I was like, nah, that wasn't for me, man. I mean, I don't mind being on the water for 6 months, but I don't want to be underwater for 6 months. And it's not, that's not what I wanted to do.
No, hell no. That's terrifying.
Yeah. So, I mean, I told him no, but at the same time, you have to have top secret. The clearance to have some of this stuff, and that's what caught my attention is like, why would you have to have secret clearance for, working with dolphins or going underwater, salvage or underwater welding, when you have to drop down into depths that far? Why would you need to have a top secret? Isn't it the planet Earth? Where are you going to see a dinosaur? I mean, you got to be seeing some kind of shit. That's, and when they brought that up and they kind of went hush hush on it, that, like I said, you got to I mean, there was actually a lot of, information coming and going within that meeting. You just kind of have to read into it.
Yeah.
That's how
I agree 100%. Didier in the chat, what's up? If I said your name wrong, sorry. Said he did ask questions in a best effort. He was allowed to shake the tree. They were given permission to grill them, but not roast them. This was a handshake extension of sorts, but it is one-sided. And I think that's a good way to put it as well. What's up? Welcome to the chat. How are you? I don't know, Kelly. I'm with you. Let's keep asking questions about crash retrievals. Wouldn't you have shit if somebody asked about Bob Lazar? I'd have been like, yes! I'd have stood up and cheered. And they're like, can you tell us about one Bob Lazar who claims in 1989 that the government actually had possession of crashed UFOs and were reverse engineering them? Bet you could hear a pin drop for a minute.
Yeah, well, they kind of briefly, I mean, really, they didn't go by names, but, he was kind of, the one congressman, he was kind of pissed off that, the leaks, he goes, these leaks that are happening, like with the videos and whatnot, that he was kind of pissed off about, like, how this shit is getting out to the general public, like we should have a tighter lid on it. But yeah, I mean, if you know ufology and what the government, like these guys brought up some history, you know what they're talking about. Some of that stuff you have to. It says a million words without even saying a word itself. Yeah, if you even kind of briefly bring something up, you know what they're talking about. And that's why I liked about how they actually even went into some of the history. Like, hey, this, and they're like, kind of played stupid. That's how I took it. Like, really, you don't know that, and you guys are supposed to be the higher intelligent. You better be briefed on everything that comes across from history to all the way to right now. You know what I mean?
Yep. Not acceptable to say something so obvious as real. Yeah. Like we all know about Blue Book. Why don't they? They're like, I'm familiar with it, but that's not what we do. It's like, okay, well, anyway, a couple more from this Gallagher guy. Mike Gallagher is a legend, is what we're going with here. So that was his first question. He actually asked specifically regarding, let's see, where is this? Project Blue Book. But then he gets into more. Check this out. Mike Gallagher, grilling in Congress. This guy he's the most locked in, I think. He's the guy that actually turned this whole thing on its head. Here we go. A little bit of echo for you guys. Here's the next clip from Mike Gallagher. Let's hear what he had to say.
Okay. Additionally, are you aware of any other DoD or DoD contract programs focused on UAPs from a technological engineering perspective? And by that I mean, are you aware of any technology initiatives focused on this topic other than initiatives focused on the individual case investigations?
I'm not aware of any contractual programs that are focused on anything related to this other than what we are doing in the Navy Task Force and what we are about to launch in terms of our effort.
Same question for you, Mr. Bray.
Same answer, not aware of anything outside what we are doing in the UAP Task Force.
So just to confirm, you're not aware of any technology or engineering resources that have been focused on these efforts besides what we've mentioned today?
Once again, I'll say no contractual or programmatic efforts that are involved. The reason why I qualify it that way. Yeah, let me qualify it that way. I can't speak to what people may be looking at in the department. Somebody says, I'm looking at something that may be unidentified, and I can't speak to that. I speak to official programs that we have on the record.
Official programs we have on the record. What does that mean, Kelly? What does that mean, James? Sorry, let's go to James. What does that mean, James? Official programs on the record.
That whole area of the government and military has always just baffled me. This idea that there can be these whole other groups of people working on stuff that hardly anyone knows about because they're not supposed to be known. I don't know. I don't like it in a way because it feels like if they're getting money from everyone that's here, then there should be some record of what's going on. But yeah, that definitely, again, like I said earlier, they were choosing their words very carefully.
And exactly, not contractually. No, not contractually, right? So
yeah.
So the next follow-up question would be, well, so then what have you heard that's not on the books, right? Like, why didn't they ask him that question? Are you aware of things that are not on the books that's maybe in the in the realm of let's say possibility here? Yeah, Yeah, crazy stuff. I don't know. This is it was a good question. The guy, like I said, the guys were we got it right in the chat there. Didier, what's up, said that they were kind of allowed to go after him a little bit, but not allowed to like crucify them right there on the House floor, because they could have. Yeah. They really could have. So therein lies your conspiracy, right? It's the patty cake game of kabuki theater. What do you think about that, Kelly? The off the books sort of stuff. Like he basically said, nah, not officially, right? That's what he said, which means kind of jack shit, doesn't it?
No, actually, when he asked that question, it to me, like, again, I go back to, the history of ufology. That actually kind of takes me back to, like, so he's like saying not contractually, right? But they have something. To me, that it's going down the rabbit hole of the secret space program, or the breakaway program like that. To me, that just shoots right down that rabbit hole quickly. So, again, that's what I'm saying. These guys are answering these questions very correct, right? So, they have the answers. They're just not wanting or willing to give that up freely like that. So, it's a back and forth mind game. It was for me, because when I'm looking at some of that stuff, they can't acknowledge some of the stuff again, and if they do, then man, here it all comes. So that's why they just keep kind of mums the word on it. They're saying yes in a certain aspect, but they can't really say it.
Yeah, yeah, officially, no, I'm not aware of any of that, right? It's like, okay, well, how about unofficially? And they don't play those games with each other, because, of course, you're not allowed. Imagine all the rumors and shit that they've actually heard, right? All the, wink, wink, unofficial stuff. Like, I'm sure there's just a shit ton of stuff going on that would probably be horrifying if we actually knew what was really happening in this world. But yeah, so a couple more clips from Mike Gallagher here. Fantastic stuff. 2 more questions. We played the Wilson Davis one, but then he also brought up the Malmstrom Air Force incident. So let's talk about that, and after we come back from this clip. This is, again, Mike Gallagher grilling Congress regarding the UFOs. Little echo for you guys. Here we go. Playing this clip, and then we'll talk about Malmstrom Air Force Base.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray, if you've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP task force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is what's within my cognizance of the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. Who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure,
this is pretty official.
There it was. There it was. He got a little snippy, didn't he? This is pretty official. Like I'm asking you officially in the halls of Congress about the 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base UFO incident, right? I'm talking about 10 ICBMs that were shut down by UFOs. Is this true? Do you know anything about this? And they're like, nah, we don't even know. What's your take there, James?
I like that. I like the way he would just kept on after that question. Again, if this was a show, then it was a pretty good show near the end here. But no, I like that, and I hadn't heard of that base by name, but I've definitely heard of these kind of places being shut down by basically by unidentified things in the air. So yeah, no, I like that part of that for sure.
Yeah, brass balls, that guy. I dig that. When you're willing to say, hey, you want official? This is official, like answer the damn question. Real quick, there was a book published in 2008 by Robert Hastings, UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapon Sites. And this is what they're talking about, detailing the shutdown of 10 nuclear missiles at the Oscar Flight Control Center underground silos and Malmstrom Air Force Base near Great Falls, Montana on the morning of March 16th, 1967. The same thing reportedly happened that same day at Echo Launch Missile Control over 20 miles away. Kelly, what's going on with this? That guy's great, isn't he? Mike Gallagher, run him for president. I don't know his politics. He's probably like horrific if you look into that. But as far as UFOs go, this guy's the man.
Yeah, he was. That's what I'm saying. He was asking some, like, if you guys don't know, then who the hell does? I'm like, I was like, get his ass, Yeah, I mean, that's a high-profile one, too. And again, to me, the non-answer to that is speaking volumes, Because for me, that's like saying, all right, we can't touch this one for another reason. And for me, and it's in the military aspect, you don't want to give your enemy to thinking that they can be shut down if these UFOs or whatnot, whatever these things were that shut down our UFO capability and, able to do that. You don't want to give that. You don't want to, you don't even, that's the furthest information you want to give out to anybody. So, of course, they're going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. No. What do you mean UFOs shutting down our nuclear facilities? That can't be right, can it? Except, and there's some people that say that, that is just a bunch of horse shit, that never happened, that Malmstrom Air Force Base thing. That's a bunch of hearsay and all the rest of this stuff, right? But I mean, as always, right, it's a conversation. How do we track any of this back? There's some people, you see what you want to see, right? And I think that's part of the problem here with not just, let's say, the post-truth era and talking about stuff like this. It's like, how much is true? How much bullshit have we been fed from, disinformation agents over the years that have informed and shaped the way we think anymore? So, I don't know, man. I'm with you that, get him. Like that Mike Gallagher guy, get him. Ask him the questions, and hey, if you don't know, who the hell knows, right? Like, are you seriously telling me that before the UAP task force was created, that nobody was watching this? Nobody knew anything about this shit? Like, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Of course it doesn't. That's silly. That's just silly. That's a stupid thing to hide behind. But what about nukes and UFOs? That's the incident we were talking about. You've heard of that, right, Kelly? Yeah, of course. There's actually been known same thing happened in Russia. It was same thing happened with them. They actually shared. It was like during the Cold War. After the Cold War, they shared that information to each other. That that actually happened to them. It was the Russians who actually shared first, because we didn't want to give that information out. But yeah, it was coming out. It was coming out through their kind of like their UFO groups that they had out there. Yeah, that information came out too. That it wasn't the United States. Now we weren't the only one, but that shit's worldwide. That they were shutting that shit down, all over. But yeah, another guy that was asking hard questions on there too is. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's SCHIFF, like Schiff. Oh, that's Schiff. That's Shifty Schiff. Yeah, he was actually asking some pretty damn hard questions and shit, too. I like those two guys. Yeah, Schiff is a psychopath, by the way, but fine. As long as he's going to ask good UFO questions, fine. Well, I'll like him for one afternoon, but he's a piece of shit otherwise. Just one man's opinion. But they're all politicians, so right? It probably would be safe to classify them as such, right? So there we go. Looking to hear your thoughts, guys. We got a few minutes left if you want to jump in here. We got James in Michigan. We got Kelly in Colorado. Myself, of course, in Las Vegas. And we're just talking about UFOs tonight. They had the hearing of the century, maybe. I don't know. Like literally in the past, let's say 50 years, there haven't been any sort of actual official hearings regarding UFOs or UAPs in Congress. It happened today. It happened this morning. So we're just looking to get your thoughts on this. What do you think? Are they again controlling the narrative, like MJ said? Are we onto something here with asking good questions or not? I don't know. I think there's a lot to it, a lot of ways to look at this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Let's go to, looks like Jennifer in Missouri. Welcome to Troubled Minds. You're on with Mike, Kelly, and James. Go right ahead. How are you?
Hello. Hey. Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about the whole picture of like the governments and just the governments themselves, and going into the idea that these officials that are chosen by families, by bloodlines, it's all kept and very controlled anyway. And they're appointed in these positions to do to do what they're appointed to do by the actual real government of the world. I mean, you have what we see, but then behind the scenes, there are others that are really deciding what is said and what is talked about and why. A lot of this, I suppose they're doing, I mean, it seems to me that it's all fake, but it's novel that they're addressing all of these things for the public and for the military to try to pretend like they are addressing something. But at the same time, what they're even talking about and the words that are being used are very specific, I think, for a reason. As was mentioned before about the changing it from UFO to UAP is notable. The fact that wanting to say whether or not it's alien, as in from like out of our solar system, from outer space, versus that it's coming from the Earth and we know about it. Because that's a big differential. They may, unidentified to us, may be easily identified to them. They may say to themselves, we know exactly what that is, but they can't tell us what it is. The fact that there's a lot of classified information. And there's, of course, the notion about there being secret weapons programs, of course, and that they can't tell anyone about any of that stuff. But the stuff that everyone knows about that's on the Earth itself, of course, or we wouldn't see it. I mean, anything you're seeing with a telescope or anything you're seeing in the water or any kind of phenomenon like that that we are all seeing is unexplainable in a lot of ways. And it's the terms like supernatural or like extra-natural, and extraterrestrial being super terrestrial. Like definitely terrestrial, so much so that they're more terrestrial than we are. And that's how I always interpret that. I can't help it when I think of it that way. When you talk about extra-dimensional, it's the same thing because we are also extra-dimensional. We're interdimensional. That's all happening. That we are not. Otherwise, there would not be all of this talk about, what happens after we die and all these different things. But when it comes down to Congress itself and having congressional hearings, they're saying what they need to say. What they probably even, that's rehearsed, I would imagine. But none of that, I don't believe that any of that was off the cuff. It was entirely staged, as all things are entirely staged. And that's just my perspective on it. But once again, yeah, it's true. It's the old thing that we've been saying the whole time, that we don't need them to tell us what we're seeing, that what we're seeing we don't know, and if you want to know, most people are terrified to find out what they actually discover when they do find out what it was. The first UFO reports occurred after the rituals of Aleister Crowley and many other of the OTO. They were doing a great deal of rituals that involved the being that they encountered. That whole thing had to do with interdimensional beings and drawing them in, and then the first sighting of UFO occurred not much longer after that. A lot of this has to do with magic, and the Congress themselves, these families are deeply rooted in that, as far as any of us that are doing any research at all into the ancient histories of these family bloodlines or anything like that. They're all descendants of these same bloodlines and same families. They're going to keep all of this I think it's very transparent, really. But as far as getting answers from these congressional hearings that we're wanting to hear, that perhaps, that we wish we would know, they can't say, because like it's been said already, it reveals the fact that they are appointed, they have assigned themselves to be appointed over the masses. You don't just have a government that rules the entire planet unless it's been decided by some other group in ancient and all throughout the entirety of history. And through all the paintings of all the artists, those artists weren't by accident. Even like the most famous of artists who depict, when they talk about ancient aliens, all of those artists were part of that secret group. Every single one of them. And I just think it is frustrating. This is not, and it never will be, there will never be anything that comes out of their mouth that is not a lie. Nothing. Because they live by that code. And it's no surprise that they're not saying anything honest whatsoever that doesn't suit them or won't later suit them. And they're choosing their words carefully, as been said, because when you look into all of it in the words themselves, how it is all a spell to keep us all just running in circles and doing what they want. The truth is that these are whatever beings are being encountered, they most likely are beings that can traverse space and time and go into shadows. As if in the New York Times post about this, bring UFOs out of the shadows. The shadow world itself is where all of what we're talking about lies. And they can't talk about that in political circles because it shuts the whole thing down. And they need this control, they need this whole structure to support what they are driving at. And what we're wanting is not what they're going to say. But for those who know, they've said everything they need to say. It's just, it is. It's annoying. But that is how it is. And we don't need to expect anything from them because they aren't going to give us anything, ever. Not ever. And if they do, it'll be because it's what they want us to know so that they can use it for some reason to get what they want.
Exactly right. Back to the old...
and it is frustrating.
It is frustrating. Back to the old sanctioned leaks, right? They if we leak classified information, you and I, we're going to jail. They do it every single day from Congress because it's for a purpose. And if it's an allowed purpose, it's a sanctioned leak, and they want us to believe something. They're controlling our mind. It's not good. It's not good. I'm with you 100%. It is interesting, too. I think we got to revisit at some point maybe that Lamb stuff with Crowley and the UFOs, because you may be onto something there. That let's say maybe UFOs have been around for a long time history-wise, historically, but it didn't turn into a thing recently until right around the exact same time he started doing that, those rituals, right? The Crowley ritual stuff. So, yeah, fascinating. Yeah. Fascinating. I love
and the
it.
weird thing about that Lamb thing, I'm glad, the whole Lamb thing, that was that's something that a lot of times it comes up. But one thing I think is, and it's very important, I think it's incredibly important, that Lamb was a species, that it wasn't just that one entity. It was a classification of something they were encountering, and they gave it that title. They gave the title Lamb to that whole phenomena of what they were encountering. Not just that one being. They didn't say this is Mr. Lamb. They were like, this, we're going to call this Lamb, these beings, these intelligent, interdimensional beings that have an agenda that we want to work with because we're bringing in the Ion of Horus. That's what they were talking about. And their agenda is this religion. If you listen to these prayer ceremonies when they have the openings, I was looking for it for this one, and I couldn't find it, but they never, ever open without some kind of prayer or some kind of notice. And the entire thing is symbolic. And I imagine the timing, these moons and everything that's been happening in the last couple of days, very symbolic at the good timing of having this hilarious hearing, a hearing for us to hear the nothing of it all continues. It is frustrating, but we shouldn't relax into it. We should be frustrated. At the same time, we don't need to even hear them. Their silence speaks louder than what they say, Yeah, and
exactly.
we can read between the lines.
Exactly, that they don't want us to know. Like it's a sham process to kind of wink wink say maybe, and then they're going to go back to whatever the hell they were doing before they started. Yeah, I'm with you. Great takes as always. You're the best, Jennifer. Jennifer has a YouTube channel. Check it out. Links in the description down below. Brilliant stuff every night from her, and go check out the YouTube channel. More brilliant stuff there. You're the best. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chiming in. You got anything for James, or James anything for Jen before you bounce?
I just want to say...
I like just enjoying the show.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jen, on everything that you said there, especially like you said, and like I said before. Again, despite all these hearings, it really doesn't matter how many hearings they have or what they bring out as the government. I'm interested in the experiences of people, not organizations or governments or agencies. I'm interested in experiences, and so I keep track of all this when I can, but it's really on the periphery. It's just really something else to keep in mind, but it's not my main focus.
Right on. Looks like the phone line died. Perfect timing. So I'm not sure if you heard any of that, but that's okay. We got you're on the record, James. All right, so I'm killing the phone lines because they just died. So we're about to be finished here. You guys know how this works, right? But we do have one final special guest before we finish this Mamma Jamba up. Thanks again to Jennifer for the phone call. Thanks again to everybody else for all the amazing phone calls. Special thanks to Kelly and James for being here for most of the duration and doing their homework, making sure they listen to the thing, had some good thoughts and some good notes, and sharing all the information. So appreciate that very much. Again, James here has a podcast, Salcedo Paranormal. Check it out. Let's go to Ash on Mars. Ash on Mars. Test 1 2. Are you there? Beep beep. Earth to Mars. What's up, bro?
Beep boop. Beepity bop. What's up?
Hey, man, just talking the stuff you love, the Congressional UFO hearing. You sent me a message this morning. You seem frustrated. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it was ultimately, I don't know what everyone, I missed the whole show. I'm not sure what everyone else's take on it, but from following Alonzo, his sub players, and the kind of dueling things that are going on, it seems as though the Pentagon is and a couple other agencies are hell-bent on not disclosing any information if possible. So hold on one second. It seemed as though the Pentagon is trying to basically take the water out of the sails. I think they're annoyed that there's been so much traction. So you heard a lot of people asking questions about, these are just reports and there's nothing confirmed. It doesn't mean this, and conspiracy theories. So you have one faction conglomerate of different entities attempting to sort of diffuse and disable it, while a lot of other players on the other side were trying to use this opportunity to basically gain traction against those. So I think there's kind of a push-pull going on. I think Alonzo is on the side of pushing for disclosure, pushing for this stuff, while the enemy tactic is to basically, like the Pentagon and those players, is to basically make this like, oh, this is ridiculous, this is just whatever. So yeah, that was kind of like what I saw as the chessboard. Did you kind of see the same or?
Yeah.
I was a little frustrated.
Yeah, we've been all over the map here. It started out super slow, but that Gallagher guy got it going. They asked some good questions kind of near the end. I don't know if you caught it, but they were talking about. We'll probably do a show on this coming up. We'll go back to the Wilson Davis documents, and they actually asked about that. Which again, if you recall, was a document regarding crash retrievals and secret access programs. And that's the guy that said, "Let me for the last 10 seconds, let me put this on the record in the Congressional record. Whether it's true or not, here you go. This is what people are talking about, right?" And that's literally the Bob Lazar shit, right? It's not, not the name Bob Lazar, but I mean, that's crash retrievals, reverse engineering UFOs. So there's some of that they kind of came out that I was shocked they'd even touch that stuff, but they did. So, I mean, I think there's some hope in the conversation, but otherwise, I'm with you. It was a lot of frustrating BS. And again, it just depends on how you look at it. Like, I think about it for 5 minutes and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That was fine. And then I think for the next 5 minutes, I'm like, no, man, this is trash. They were withholding information intentionally, obfuscating everything, saying, well, closed session, we'll do it, that type of stuff. But there were good questions asked. So I don't know. Like, I'm split, as you can tell.
I think that comes from the dynamic of push-pull. A lot of these guys are lawyers, right? And this is kind of how legal stuff goes. I think the offensive, let's say the good side, the disclosure side, they submitted information and asked, do you know about any of this? Do you know about any of that? And I think that they're setting up this chess game to kind of check each other. Like, well, you said you didn't know anything about that, this and that. And what a lot of... I used to be in politics when I thought it mattered, but what you'll see a lot is whenever they have hearings, they try to be like, oh, I don't know. That's like the best answer. Maybe we'll look into it. I don't know. And you basically just kind of like sweep it. You just, push the buck along and then nothing happens. And I saw a lot of that by the Pentagon officials. One of the instruments that the government uses is compartmentalization. And the reason is because you could take someone who knows nothing about it, stick them between you and the person coming after your information or to hold you accountable. And they ask that person, do you know about this? And they can honestly say, no, I don't. Right? So I think that's happening. I don't think there's it's a malicious lying, but I do think there's malicious players in the background. We hear all these rumors about secret space programs. I mean, I've seen where we're on the moon, we're on Mars, we're in other solar systems, and it's like, okay, I don't know if all that's true, but there's definitely more than they're saying, right? The TR-3Bs, Salvatore Pais was a guy who holds patents for the U.S. Navy, and the Navy is one of the people who want to push disclosure. I suspect, this is my theory, the Navy, the different branches and different agencies have their own programs, right? And they work with their own contractors. I suspect that the Navy has their own stuff, and their own secret programs, and they've been flying their own stuff around their own stuff to get evidence of UFOs, to have the narrative to punch a hole in the other programs of the other agencies, like the Air Force and different things like that. And I suspect there's a push to centralize this, topic or these resources into something called the Space Force, or just trying to kind of get it all under one roof. And I think that these other departments are sort of withholding their goods for whatever reason, whether they've committed crimes or they just don't want to give up the contracts, or I don't know, whatever it is. I think that we're seeing a chess game, and we're at the pawn level, and maybe there's a couple of knights moving in, right? So it's hard to see these hearings and actually, be like, yay. Because I imagine the conversations, and they're on YouTube. If you actually follow the subject matter, are way more interesting. We have one CI official saying that, we're hybrids and that they're pretty much know that information. Alonzo constantly stops himself because he doesn't want to go too far with information. Lots of interesting conversations. The Salvatore Pais guy with the Navy UFO patents. all this kind of stuff. So it's a grand chess game, and we just saw like a little bit. But, there's supposed to be more and more hearings, and this is my prediction. The Pentagon will continue to try and deflate the topic. You'll see questions asked like, but that doesn't mean they're aliens, right? This is kind of ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll also see like hot, spicy moments like, yeah, can we submit this to the record? And you'll see more of that. I mean, they even brought up the UFOs over the nuclear facilities, and that's like on the record, and for them not to know that is kind of ridiculous. Like, so clearly, yeah, that's what they're doing. So I'm hopeful. I mean, progress is being made, and Congress is a very powerful entity, and let's hope that I think the next election, hopefully the next election isn't crazy, because the last elections, the last two, were, inundated the news cycle so much. They wanted to get this information out like 3 or 4 years ago, and they couldn't. So let's hope, let's all as a community, I think whether you're lefty, righty, whatever it is to win, I'm going to vote for whatever's going to be the calmest, consistent. If they get 8 years of pressure, I think they're going to make a lot of progress versus, if it's another crazy election and, whatever. So I'm going to vote for like calm. Even if it's like, I don't like my vote, I'm going to vote for that, because I think disclosure and this kind of stuff is more important. And it honestly solves like all our problems, like green energy, super high advanced technology. It brings a lot of these like disgusting secret programs to light. They're absolutely disgusting, the things I hear about them, and just in general, it's gross. And like, so anyway, yeah, I'm hopeful, but I was a little annoyed. But I think these people are fighting the good fight, and I'm grateful that I'm not. I mean, we fight the good fight, spreading information, but we don't have to deal with the legalese and like anyway. So that was a long thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
sorry.
You're spot on with a lot of stuff we were saying too. It's frustrating back and forth, and hopefully, like you brought a fresh take as well, in that maybe they're setting this up for a fight down the road. Maybe it's like the I gotcha stuff, and that's one way to look at it. Maybe they're like, okay, well, so you don't know anything about the nukes and the UFOs, so then they can maybe drudge up some information, and then can be like, next time, booyah, gotcha. You looked at this memo, you signed it back in, let's say 1998, and you knew about this, and now you're lying to us, right? Something like this. So maybe there's some posturing, or I don't know, man. Like, I think we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see if they continue to press this. I know it got a fuck ton of news coverage. I know that people all over UFO Twitter and Twitter was freaking out all day about this, and like that's good. That's good, but also, right? Like, how much does it actually press into the actual zeitgeist? How much does it press into the minds of regular people, the normies, right? Because that's what this fight is about. It's about getting the normies interested and engaged in that type of stuff, and then hopefully things will change. Well, we'll see. I hate saying hopefully, because, well, we know what that actually means. We know what that actually means.
Yeah. I mean, we have made a tremendous amount of progress. Did you think it would even get this far, right? So Alonzo has stated that they have no intentions of stopping, and they're trying to remove people. That we covered that whole drama in the department. And look, that stuff is like not really that exciting, but that is really important for removing these powerful people who can pull strings and blockade things and literally like order like half hit jobs on you, where they harass you. Look, let's say you're a passionate person, you want to pursue this subject, you get one lawsuit and that can ruin you. So and that's just many tools of the agencies that they have. And Alonzo spoke about this. Like, they harassed him. They're very good at it. He knows where to avoid it. So I'm not 100% Team Alonzo, but
Elizondo.
Elizondo. I say his name a lot. I should say it right.
I just have to make sure people know who we're talking about here. Come on, bro. You're killing me.
For sure.
Elizondo. Lou Elizondo is who we're talking about. But yeah,
Louis Elizondo.
Yeah, and they do. They give him a bunch of shit too. And I don't know. I don't know where I stand on him either, because it seems like sometimes he's on the ball, but other times he's saying some weird shit, and you're like, what is this guy talking about, right? So I don't know. As always, is it part of a larger deception? I'm gonna say maybe, because I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure either. I think 3D chess. I think that they are pushing for a form of disclosure, that faction. But is it for good or for bad? I kind of don't care. Like, I guess, but they definitely are pushing for disclosure. Like, I mean, through actions. If they weren't, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So, he could be, I imagine he's a chess piece on the board. Probably a
sure.
knight.
Yeah. 100% for sure. Yeah. He's the face of it. He's the face of it. Yeah. Great stuff. You're the best, bro. Thanks for peeling off and doing what you got to do, and then coming and giving us your hot take. I appreciate it a lot. Anything else to add to this? What do you look for or predict in the future regarding maybe the next one? You think within the year we got a second one, or do you think they're going to wait a whole another year before they do something like this?
I think right now I think right now we're fighting over reality, basically, right? Whether UFOs are real, we've barely established that as almost fact, and they're trying to walk it back to basically see, like, we don't know what it is, right? And let's say this: the Pentagon wasn't super like. They weren't like, it could have been a lot worse, right? But there were people asking those officials questions that, like, those are the questions that pissed me off. Like, there's all these conspiracy theories. Like, well, can we throw some water on this? Or basically, like, bitch, like, there's like a ton of shit behind these little walls you got going on, and we're probably only guessing at like a fraction of it. Anyway, so they're kind of fighting for that. I think we've already made a ton of progress. Look, scientists are looking into it, all these different YouTubers, and basically the narrative. Now we're fighting over the narrative. Is it them? Is it them? Like, is it those guys? And if we can hold our ground. Now's the kind of time to fight and to put information out there. But if it takes, then we don't really need it. Then it'll just happen, because scientists are going to look into it. People if the public accepts that, then it'll happen naturally. People will just accept that there's other beings, and then we're going to curiously figure it out. The public needs. I know you're trying to wrap up, but the public needs permission to, like, look into these, and I think it's been granted almost up to the critical mass moment. So we only need to go a little bit further. That's what I predict. I think the Pentagon's gonna throw cold water on it. But look, there's like you just catch the secret hearing stuff, like, hey, are they under the oceans and stuff like that, and then they're like, hey, let's say that in a secret hearing. I think those secret hearings are fire. I think there's some fire shit in there, bro. I think there's some, and at least congressmen will say, like, literally, like, well, what do you say about all these people that say these UFOs are not this and they're not that, and they're like, well, you weren't in the meetings I've been in. Basically saying, like, I've been briefed fucking aliens, right? So yeah, I mean. We'll see, and they leak some of the shit from those hearings anyway. They leak what you'll see them think for a second. They say something that we never heard before. So I don't know. Generally I'm optimistic. It was a little bit lame, but we'll see how it goes, I guess. So I don't know. That's it. That's my idea.
That's all.
Did you enjoy it? Were you were a little hype, a little exciting? I mean, I saw they showed the videos and stuff, which is pretty exciting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we had one. By the way, the bokeh, actually bokeh. How do you say it? Bokeh was actually determined that Jeremy Corbell's video was fake. They said, or not fake, and it was not UFOs as they expected. It was just drones and night vision and some camera effects, right? So those pyramids, those green pyramids, which we all kind of rolled our eyes at when that happened, because what about the 5 observables? What about these things zipping around, defying gravity and all the rest of this shit, defying physics? And these things are just floating out there like they got propellers, you know what I mean? Not doing nothing. It's fucking nuts. Anyway, yeah, a ton to it. Like I said, we'll get back to it and see what happens, because I'm sure now the infighting, the wrangling goes and happens based on who knows what on the inside. And let's see what develops. Sometimes the best news about something that happens is not when it happens; it's several days later. So us, we're going to stay tuned to that. Yeah, well, exactly. And, the investigative reporting and some of this stuff. So we'll keep an eye on that as it happens, and we'll go from there. You're the best, brother. Thanks for dipping in here and giving us your take.
Yeah, one more thing before I go real quick. People are claiming that NASA is going to announce plans about them studying UFOs. And, maybe that'll happen. And I think that'll be a big deal. So look out for that. That's a prediction that was made by a couple different people, so we'll see. That's pretty exciting. But thanks for having me on. Good talking to you guys. I hope you all have a good night, and good luck. The truth is out there.
The truth is out there. Everybody give Ash a follow. Links in the description down below. It says follow Ash here. Ash the Reptilian from Mars. He's got a YouTube channel. He talks about all kinds of shit like this. Disclosure and the Draco Reptilians, of course, because, well, hey, somebody's got to combat those guys. You're the best, Ash. Thanks for popping in. James, anything else before we get the hell out of here?
Yeah, I do hope that more comes of this, and I'm not totally dismissing it. I just know what I will be, as always, focused on and what I do, but I'll still keep an eye on all this as well, and look forward to hearing what you all cover in future shows and as well. So thank you for having me again.
Hey, man, thanks for being here. Give James a follow. Salcedo Paranormal does paranormal stuff 5 nights a week. Links in the description. All right. Robert in the chat says, real quick before we take off, I think it's all bread and circus. It's the flow, politics, celebrities, other countries' problems, and then UFOs, watch, rinse, repeat. And it could very well be all a big distraction. So it very well could be. So let's get the hell out. I'm going to play some music and do the thing. You guys dance. And thanks for being part of this. Thanks for hanging out with us. And thanks for, you guys know the drill. Thanks. I'm not running for office, I promise, yet. So what we're doing is we're finishing. The bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we got tomorrow. That one's for Jay in New York. What's up, buddy? Shout out to Jay. And, if you want to help the show, there's a number of ways, right? We'll be back tomorrow, of course, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And, so you can sub up actually on Patreon, Twitch, Rockfin. Rockfin's probably the best value if you want to do that. There's a Troubled Minds merch store called troubledfans.com. You can go find all the stuff there. We got hats and shirts and all kinds of stuff. How's the shirt, James?
It's awesome.
How's the hat, Ash, if he's still there? He got a hat as well. Yeah,
I got 2 of them.
2 of them. How look sharp, right?
Yeah, we're on both at the same time.
Hell yeah. One on each foot. There you go. Troubledfans.com. You can find the Troubled Minds merch if you want to spend some money. If you want to help the show and don't want to spend some money, I completely get it. Some of us don't have it, or you don't think this work is important enough. I got you. You can still help us. Spread the word. 100% spread the word. That's how we beat the algorithms, old school word of mouth. And then also, you can all just listen to the podcast feed. Go to anywhere you get your podcasts. That's for Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, you name it. Any of those places, Spreaker, of course. And you could there's ads baked in, and if you just listen to some old shows, there's a lot of gold. There's like 415 episodes now or something ridiculous like that. So go check out the podcast feed. We don't just talk about UFOs and aliens. We talk about consciousness and all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you're into these discussions, go listen to the podcast feed. It does help the show. Let those ads run. If you skip them, it knows you skip them. So there we go. As we finish, I guess that's it. It goes like that, right? It goes like that. And as we finish, it also goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. Appreciate it, James.
Always happy now.
We got a wild Tam Bam. All right, we'll talk to you offline, Tam Bam. We're killing this. We're killing it. Tam Bam always dipping in at the last second, trying to make me go an extra hour. Damn it, Tam Bam. All right, killing the stream. We'll see you guys in the after chat. If you're going to do that, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Come say hi. Come meet all these amazing people. And we'll see you guys soon. Music out. Michael Strange out. And we'll see you guys, God willing, tomorrow.